Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Realistically, a show where we deconstruct the current events of the week and put a highlight to the injustices of the world.
Hello.
I'm Esha, and this is Janet. And so, welcome. This week's been quite a lot of things have been going on. So it seems like there have been over 75 protests all over U.S. college campuses on behalf of Gaza. So that's good. And today we have a really exciting guest. One of the organizers from the MIT. MIT is coming. But anytime there's like a protest, anytime there's a protest not approved by the establishment, there's always been a really huge smear campaign. So which video shall we start with? The lady with the shirt or the eye poke lady?
Let's try let's do the eye poke lady first.
Okay.
And then
she writes for Yale newspaper, and basically in the past she has known to lie. So a few months ago, she said that they stopped selling Israeli couscous salad at Yale campus. And then like 2 minutes later, students took photos in the cafeteria where they were still selling Israeli couscous salad. So it seems like she had a meltdown over a salad. And then this happened recently.
Okay. All right. I just have to jump back and start it.
Okay, so now there's a full wall. We will not stop, we will not rest this foes. Divest. We will not stop, we will not rest this foes. Divest. See, I can't move forward. We will not rest this foes. Divest. We will not stop, we will not rest this foes. Divest. We will not stop, we will not rest this foes. Divest. It's closed. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest. It's closed. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest. It's closed. Divest. Oh, you said.
Okay, cool. Did you guys see that? So she claims that a protester poked her eye, and it looks like a flag slightly waved at her camera. There's no proof that it hit her eye. But the really horrible thing is that her lies made it to every mainstream newspaper in America, where they, even though this video exists, New York Times basically had this thing where they so Brett Stevens wrote an article about this, repeating her word. New York Post did it too. Wall Street Journal did it. So many newspapers repeated this lie, and she went on Fox News, Piers Morgan, everything, even though this video exists that shows that she was not poked in the eye at all. She got to create her own mini smear campaign against the protesters for allegedly poking her in the eye.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's extremely ridiculous. And this is what happens at every protest. At every time there's a strike, people are like, "Oh, the teachers are striking. What about the children?" And it's like, if you cared about the children, you'd pay the teachers more. So they didn't have to strike.
If you don't want the protests, then you tell the universities to do what they're supposed to do.
Divest.
Yep.
Yeah, and what people don't know is that a lot of defense companies donate crap loads of money to universities so they can offload their defense research, like how to make bombs and how to make bigger, better bombs, the AI control, the guidance system, and so on and whatnot. And a lot of engineering and physics departments are filled with this kind of research. Yeah. And so of course, the problem is that when like a physics department has so many slots, so many like so much capacity. If they're doing all these weapons research, it means they're not doing research about traveling to space and warp drives and whatnot, better stuff that we should be working on.
I mean, the stuff that better humanity, not destroy humanity. Yeah, that would be nice.
Exactly. And so, so during the Vietnam War, this was a big deal because some universities were involved in counterinsurgency. That is like, how many people do you need to push off a helicopter in order to kill a revolutionary movement or something like that? Or how should Pinochet torture people, with dogs or with bears? That's counterinsurgency research. And but during that time, the student protests led to actual results. But then, so it does help when students protest because it shines a light on the university. It makes the university look bad. And half the thing the university does is fundraise from alumni. And if they're and some alumni are reactionary as crap, who the big donors, but then there's a lot of other donors who don't want to who don't want to deal with this nonsense. Like, oh, you donated this to the university, are you okay with? And so it gets them to ask questions. It makes them uncomfortable, and so often if it's too much of a headache, they'll just decide not to accept the endowment or not to invest in that particular branch of research. And so that's what's going on in Columbia, Harvard, Yale. And in Ohio, I just learned that there's a law that prevents BDS from happening. So Ohio has a law preventing public institutions from divesting from Israel-related issues.
Yeah. I think that I saw, now I'm thinking as you're saying that, I think I saw that one school has decided to
Portland University.
Yeah, stop taking money from Boeing or something.
Yeah, Portland University. Yeah, and yeah, so that's good news.
So,
and
I mean,
so
they are working, but it's like, they, like, but like people, I don't think too is like, I had someone ask me the other day that like, and this is just someone that is, I don't know how to explain it, but they just have to be told what's happening because if they don't logically, like, why would it be students that are doing this? And I'm like, it's because their schools, because it was actually her old school was Emerson. So what, like, she didn't understand, like, why is Emerson doing this? And I'm like, because your school has ties to Israel, your old alma mater. So you're the students are out there protesting. And like, I don't think like that wasn't like they made, of course, the protests in the 60s were anti-war, but they had a point like that. They were protesting at the schools for their schools to divest this in the same ways. Like the one in Kent State was actually the big thing that was going on in Kent State. It wasn't so much Vietnam. It was actually Cambodia in the, from the things I was watching recently.
Kill everything that moves.
Mm-hmm. So they were upset with the Cambodia stuff, or at least some of the students. Like I was watching like this old interview with one of the students, and she like, they were all sent home after what happened, and her father said to her like, well, they should have shot all the students. She's like, I would have been dead, Dad. Like I was there, like I was out there. And then he just like left the room and didn't talk to her.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
And right now, Kent State is doing this weird propaganda thing. Kent State and Cambodian University forever joined by history.
Yep.
We tried to kill you guys, but
did you see the sniper? Like they had snipers.
Is that which university is that? I saw the snipers. I know it's somewhere in Ohio, but I'm not sure which university.
It was Ohio and one in Indiana. So
okay. Oh, by the way, Bryce Green, friend of the show, he's a journalist for FAIR. He got arrested in Indiana for trespassing. at Indiana University.
They threw down that fox. He was filming it, and the cops like pulled him down and threw him to the ground. A local Fox News guy down in Texas. And that was that.
Wow.
Yeah, they like you just watch the video. They like grab him from behind and just like toss him, and they're claiming that he was pushing, but he was just filming, and he got pushed, and the cop from behind him just grabbed him.
Oh, wow. Okay. So Norval Rogers says, standing where the fascists told you not to stand. By the way, Norval Rogers is going to be a father soon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a girl, I think. No, or I don't know the gender, actually. I shouldn't be saying it's a girl. I don't know why I said
Barbara, we know. You don't know. No, we found out. But yeah, no, that was exactly like, so one time that I got arrested was exactly what that was, what Norval's saying there is like, I was told by one EMT to stand in a certain spot. I was told by the other EMT to move out of that spot. And I didn't know what I was doing. So the EMT that told me to move out of the spot decided to call the cops. I was in the back of a bathroom. I couldn't get around. There was a huge crowd like at the door. And the woman was like passed out, like someone roofied her. So she was like passed out in the bathroom. And I was getting yelled at. And it's exactly that they love doing that stuff. Like one tells you one thing and the other tells you something else. And then you get arrested.
For resisting arrest.
For resisting.
Yeah, that's the thing. If the underlying arrest is bullshit, the resisting charge should also not be there. Especially when most people don't really resist arrest.
Yeah.
It's like, that's basically, I can't figure out what to charge you with. So let's just make up something.
Yeah, well, they have like the couple of professors that got arrested at Emory, right? And then like the one, all she was doing is because, and I saw the video that was right before that, like how the cops just slammed that kid down. So she was going over, like she was concerned. You see her like go towards, and then the cop grabs her.
So she was not ideological. She was just making sure one of her students was okay. Exactly.
Like she went down, like she reacted because she saw the student get slammed down to the ground. And yeah, it's like, and everyone like, oh, well, she, yelling, I'm a professor. Like that wasn't why she was yelling that. She was yelling, I'm a professor, because the people that were filming, they want to know the people's names that are getting arrested. And the whole thing with, the fact that they're arresting professors, I mean, that shows you something even more. And the fact that they're getting out there because they could easily lose their jobs over this. And like so yeah. Do you want to watch Brave Wife?
Yeah, let's watch Brave Wife. So it was very cringe. The husband in his now deleted tweet said something like, "This is my brave wife standing against anti-Semitism."
Okay, give me 1 second because this takes me a second to get up right.
Mm-hmm. I like the music.
No one's making a move towards her.
Yeah. You're just chilling and watch the Jews for Palestine sign. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. They're all just doing their own thing, not even paying attention.
Yeah. And anyways, later in this video, I heard she says, "Dox me, dox me,
Yep.
dox me, dox me."
Yep. Yep. She was yelling at, for people to dox her, but it was her husband that posted the video and said, "This is my brave wife, my brave Jewish wife, like going out there and it's like brave of what? Like,
yeah, to not get noticed, I guess.
Like you're trying to instigate. You're the aggressor there. Like you're the one being aggressive, not people around you.
Oh, speaking of instigators, there's a professor at Columbia, Shahai David Shah. What's his name?
Davide.
Okay, so I went on the last week. Somebody asked me if he was a fail son. So I went on the SEC's website, Security Exchange Commission, and so I realized that I'll retweet it so if you guys want to follow along. So there's a group called the ARC Group Worldwide Incorporated. So the following individuals are affiliated with this group. Mr. Eli Davidai, the company's general manager of operations as of May 2017, and has been the managing director at QMI, another defense contractor, since 1992, where he is responsible for making investments and overseeing companies at the firm. Additionally, Mr. Davidai was elected to the company board of directors June 5th, 2018. So now if you go to the ARC Group Worldwide's website, one of the products they sell is a great ally for defense industry components. So he is a billionaire. I don't know if he's a billionaire, but a multi-millionaire fail son.
Yeah. And he's an ex-IDF, right? He was in the IDF.
I don't know about that. He may be. So his dad definitely has interest in war.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely. He was the one asking them to call the National Guard.
And he went on and had a meltdown at the lawn where he's like, "This is not okay." And then Columbia thankfully deactivated his badge because they said they couldn't guarantee his safety on campus. Thank God.
Oh, it's such a mess.
Yeah. So it is. And Columbia, or another one I read from Columbia, is that there was a student who's from Georgia. And I don't know if it's a she or a he, but they suspended him and said her or him. And basically, they said you have 5 minutes to vacate. And then he's like, where can I live? I don't have an apartment. I live in the dorm. And they were like, oh, we can help you book a ticket back to Georgia, is what the president said. Mm. And so these are going on. And when you see it, like, with Piers, like when people like Piers Morgan and Fox News and Jake Tapper, don't forget Jake Tapper, gives all these cretins airtime to voice their lies. It's just infuriating.
Yep. And like I was telling you about, like, Ruffalo having that tweet, like
Mark Ruffalo, actor.
Yeah. Just saying, like, oh, we have to be peaceful. This is not, the protests aren't peaceful and stuff. And this is like, he's saying this as Susan Sarandon's down at, Columbia. It's like,
yeah, all the protests seem to be peaceful. Like, the only people not peaceful are the cops there. Like, and then there's this other right-wing outlet that basically, okay, so I used to live not far from there. I lived in, I don't want to say where I live, but not far from Columbia campus. So I've walked by that street 100,000 times on a daily basis. And I actually recognize this homeless. I don't know if he's a homeless man, but he's definitely out there, and he screams out all these conspiracy theories. And he has one about the Jews and whatnot. And one of these news outlets actually filmed him. So it was on Broadway and 115th Street. And they were like, this is the protest. And it's like, no, look at his age. He looks like he's somewhere between 40 and 50. He's not a student. It's clear. So there's a lot of smear campaigns going on, and it's normal during these times. And this is why we need independent media. So please donate. Go to historically.net and become a paid subscriber, or please donate a super chat, because we will tell you the truth. We will deconstruct all the lies that they tell you.
In Boston near Emerson, and the whole trick with the bricks. So there was a whole bunch of bricks that were put out, and so they were like, "Oh, the students in the bricks," and like cops have been known to like move bricks into areas so that they can, maybe instigate people getting a little rioty, and but what was happening, like the work, like at least the Boston news, the local news actually looked into it, and the workers were like, no, we're actually fixing, like, this is the building we're fixing. Like, we needed these bricks for this building. Like, we put them there. Like, they're not there. Like, and it wasn't even like right near where they were protesting. It was far enough away that it was just kind of, but the cops trying to like claim that they were doing that on purpose and stuff. Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah. Can you show me the tweet about the students learning how to barricade themselves? That's really funny.
Oh, hold on. Let me get into it.
We still have 8 minutes before Gabriella joins us. 7 minutes.
Yeah. I had the AOC one pulled up, but let me.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's do the barricade and then the AOC after that.
Okay. Well, give me 1 second. I just have to. This is a pain in the butt. I have to set this up a different way because I have to like hit like way too many buttons to get something pulled up now.
The best way to go ahead. We'll talk about
it. Here it is. And we'll go here. Now we go here. All right, here we go. I just gotta play the damn thing. So that's that video, and then
so it's because somebody made a joke that it's because in the U.S. Schools do drills where kids active shooter drills where kids learn how to barricade themselves. So at least instead of gun control, this is what kids learn.
Yeah, but I mean that's what they did. So you just created a whole generation of children who are now adults or turning adults, and they can barricade themselves really well.
Yeah.
Like they can protect themselves from violence, and that includes cop violence. So
cops are probably the biggest active shooters around.
So I mean, like I don't know what they expected to come out of that. You couldn't protect your students, and now they know how to protect themselves. And
yeah, the kids are gonna be all right. No more Popo says he's just coming to say hi. And so yeah, hey, we wish you could stay, but catch the stream later.
Yes. See you later, Noma. But yeah, no, it was just funny, and everyone's making jokes about the 5-gallon empty water gallon thing. And
yeah, so Harvard turned on its sprinkles, and then they just put a 5-gallon water bottle on top of it, and the sprinkles stopped bothering people. But the really funny thing, actually, Matt tweeted this out yesterday. I'll share it with the chat. Okay, so Congressman Brian Mast made a stupid meme that says, "Who would win, anti-Semitic protesters or sprinklers?" And so Matt said, "Not everybody's legs are rust, bro." Yeah.
And what was the other? Oh, so then we have the AOC part.
Yeah.
Let me get that keyed up. I had it.
So AOC made rounds after she was with Biden, right next to him, like yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's so horrendous because it's like you're sitting there saying like vote for Biden. This crap is happening under Biden. So
yeah, she visited Columbia campus.
Thank you so much for coming out here. It's great to support people with different backgrounds in politics just here for the cause.
So I'm a freelancer with right now with New York Times.
It's really special. Again, I support you in contact, but anything that can be possible, I just wanted to support you.
Thank you so much.
Forgive me if I ask for myself.
Maybe outside.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, she also votes for giving Israel tons. Like, in fact, usually the only person who consistently votes against it is Thomas Massie. Otherwise, like the squad is really terrible on foreign policy. They vote to give like Israel like infinite number of weapons, and they vote for the Iron Dome and whatnot and so on. So this just kind of feels hypocritical. Like it's almost patronizing her voters. Like, hey, I'm progressive, even though I won't do anything progressive.
Yeah, the last bill this week was $95 billion out to Taiwan, Israel, and Ukraine.
Yeah,
between
exactly. And there were 48 Republicans who voted against it, 0 Democrats in Congress.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, I mean it's.
And to like symbolically vote against it would cost her absolutely nothing because it's already passing like 400, by a landslide. So it really costs her nothing to symbolically do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, but I mean, she fully supports Biden. You know, like I mean, she's totally in support of, having him run again. And someone like her could have made the difference. Like she could have backed, someone that was more progressive or something like that to run against Biden.
How old is she now?
She could have run. Yeah, I think it was 2024 is when she was 35.
Okay, she could have primaried Biden if she wanted to.
Yeah, because I think she was going to be 35 by the time. I think, if I remember correctly, when we were thinking.
Let me look it up. October 13th, 1989. She would be 30. She would be eligible to be president because on Inauguration Day, she would have to be 35, and she would have. So she could have totally primaried Biden if she wanted to.
Yeah. And and that was the whole thing. Like, that's what they were pushing in 2018 when they were pushing her. They're like, oh, and I remember all this. Like, well, she's all progressive and stuff like that. And like, we could support her for 2024. Like, that was like what they were telling people to support her in 2018. And, it was.
I remember exactly like 5 days after the primary, somebody noticed that her Palestine platform just kind of went to just kind of fell off the website. Yeah, a lot of people defended her then. But then what really shocked me was when she unfollowed Rania Khalek, who lives in the Middle East. She lives in Lebanon because of like some regime change ghoul said something bad about Rania. And it's like, oh, well, no, what really, really pissed me off is her meeting with the Bolivian fascists. that was just not acceptable. But that's another story. That's not related to this issue.
I will say that, like, people mentioning like, oh, AOC was there, but there didn't seem like there was a lot of excitement with her there. You know what I mean? Like there was a couple of people standing there talking, but even
the
like,
women who were standing next to her looked very sour.
yeah, she didn't look happy with it. So I don't know. I would just,
Yeah. But this is what happens when you have these people who don't have ideological training, who aren't really grassroots, because Justice Democrats was like some org started by Cenk. Does it even exist now?
I don't. The Wolf Pack? Is that
No,
what?
the Wolf Pack is the thing that never pretends to say they were going to do a 28th Amendment, make money out, and they never do shit. Like that. I like they've gotten so many millions of dollars of small dollar donations, and they haven't done crap.
They did nothing with it.
They haven't even passed it in like you can get the referendum in one state. Like they haven't even done that. And it's very popular. It's not that hard to actually get a referendum for this in one state. Vermont. Oh, what's the smallest state? Like Rhode Island, Vermont, something with 5 people. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like Maine or like any of those things you could.
Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, any of those states will definitely pass it, and they haven't even done that.
No.
But Justice Democrats was that's the thing, is that they picked people who looked good on TV, or and AOC has had media training, and she spent her study abroad in Niamey with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in Niger. Oh, okay. So Stern says Cenk and Kyle Kulinski.
For what? For
Justice Democrats.
Yeah, the Democrats. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought Cenk and Kyle had a falling out, but I'm not here to gossip.
I don't know what's going on with all that. I think they're still kind of on the same side. As long as they're against Jimmy Dore, then I think they do okay. And there was something weird a few months back that like Bree Joy was, and they were all gonna like unite or something like this. And I don't know what happened. I don't have all the leftists
against Brie. Like she's the sweetest person, and she's so uncontroversial. She's not even trolly like me.
Yeah. But
like there's nothing to be against for her.
So, yeah. Cenk is a clown. Yes.
Cenk is a total clown.
There because yes.
I mean, who names their show Young Turks? I mean, you might as well name it, I don't know, the Ustazi.
Well, this is the whole thing. You name it that, and then people come to you and say, like, even if you weren't thinking, you named it that, and you thought it was like a cool name or something like that. And then people start coming to you and go, you know what? That's not really cool because that has something to do with a genocide. Wouldn't you be like, if someone came to us and said realistically was actually like a group that genocided people, I think you and I would be like, fuck, we're not getting anymore.
Exactly. But then there was a really funny time of a few years ago where Anna got confronted by this Armenian student group. And then somebody yelled something about in Armenian, and she's like, "What are you gonna? What did you just say about my mother?" Oh, okay. Matt says it won't let me connect, which sucks because I really wanted to loudly lecture to people what organizing actually is. So I'll tell him.
You can't connect at all.
Hold on. Record out your lecture, and I'll play it on stream. Okay.
Yes, he should do that.
Yeah.
Yes, tell him to get his lecture in.
Is Gabriella joining us?
I haven't. Let me just check in on here. Because if she has to be late, we could play the video. Like if she has to be later, we could play the video or something like that. Drew Pavlu. Yeah, so what there was also, hold on, I want to share something. I want to share a screen. if I have it up. Here we go back. Oh, she's here. So this was, do you guys remember Ken Bone though?
Yeah, he was the guy with the red sweater, the wholesome guy who asked during the Hillary Trump debate a question.
Yeah, he did. He put this post out yesterday. Everyone was laughing at it. All right, let's bring up Gabriella. Hold on.
Hey, Gabriella.
Wow.
Hello, everyone. This is Gabriella from MIT. She's one of the student organizers of the protest, and I feel like I should bring my Kafia too. If I can point out.
Yeah.
So how's it going?
Things are okay here. Things are pretty good. I'm just inside of one of the academic buildings across the street from the encampment right now.
Oh, good. It sounds quiet there right now, but
It is quiet inside the buildings. It's usually a little louder out there. Yeah.
yeah. So, Ashley, you want to take it away?
Sure. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, are you an undergrad student or a grad student? And what brought you to MIT?
I'm a graduate student. I'm a second-year master's student in the Department of Urban Studies and Planning. I'm actually also an alum in the class of 2013. I studied physics my first time around. So yeah, I came back to do this urban planning degree, actually, because I was sort of interested in working more closely to social justice issues than the science work I had been doing before. But my focus is more domestic. Like I've worked in public housing and I do some environmental planning stuff. And I sort of come to this protest because of personal convictions and not my professional orientation so much.
Oh, okay. And so I've seen I've seen the protest start off in Columbia, then to Harvard, Yale, MIT. So how did you and your group get involved with the is it protest, encampment? What do you call it?
I think we call it the encampment. It is a protest, but we've been engaged in protests all year at MIT. At MIT, we have something called the Coalition for Palestine, which is a coalition of 13 groups. It sort of keeps growing that work together. A bunch of them were previously existing groups like the Black Student Union or the Black Graduate Students Association, the Asian American Initiative, MIT Divest, which is a fossil fuel campaign-oriented group. And then sort of at the heart is the Coalition Against Apartheid, which is kind of like our Students for Justice in Palestine. It was revived from the old anti-apartheid organization that was founded originally in the 70s and really took root in the 80s to combat South African apartheid and fight for divestment, which I just want to say MIT never did divest from South African apartheid. But we revived other people. I was not here at the time in 2021, revived the Coalition Against Apartheid. And then there's a group called Palestine at MIT, which is sort of a group for Palestinian students to do cultural events and things like that. And so those groups were around. There have been a bunch of groups that were started since everything that's happened over this academic year. Jews for Ceasefire, which I helped start, the Grads for Palestine group, and a number of others. And we all work together. We've been campaigning all year, trying to get the school to end programs that have direct ties to the Israeli military and military applications of research into oppression of Palestinians. I mean, I think oppression is kind of a word that's not doing enough there. But just in general, yeah, go ahead, please.
Can you tell us a little bit more about these programs? Because I'm not too familiar with them, and most people, I think, are not.
Like what exactly the things are that we want them to get rid of?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there were a number of different things. The first ask that came out of the coalition was that we wanted to get rid of something called the Misty Israel Lockheed Martin Fund. So Misty is like our study abroad program. It's really meant for students to go do research abroad over the summer or over the January term. And they had a specific program that Lockheed Martin provided the funding for. It was actually quite a small amount of funding in the scheme of things, $30,000, but that was part of why it was chosen as an initial target. Like, we need to get the school to agree to something and move forward from there. And so we think that these programs are meant to bring MIT students in to do research with direct military applications like used by the Israeli military. So that was one. Right now, what the school is asking, or what our encampment is demanding, is to get rid of these 6 research projects, which are directly funded by the Israeli Ministry of Defense.
Wow.
Yeah, which is pretty gross, honestly. We have obviously an unimaginable amount of funding from the Department of Defense at the school in general. And I think many people see that as a moral hazard, to say the least. But we also have these research projects that are directly funded by the Israeli Ministry of Defense. And so the demand of our encampment is to cut funding or to cut those programs specifically, just to get rid of those research projects. We have a greater divestment goal that I think we want to work towards in general, but the approach at MIT has always been, over the course of this campaign, to sort of work incrementally to get rid of one thing at a time, and build organizing power in the process.
That makes sense. So I guess when did things, so you guys said you've been protesting, doing different actions all year long. Can you talk a little bit about this? And when did things heat up, and when, and it seems like recently you've gotten a lot more media attention for what you're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think media has not always been super interested in covering things that we're doing on the campus. So I think we've at times really tried to garner media attention just as a way of building pressure, because we see that Zionists supporting students and faculty really use media to put pressure on our administration, and they're very responsive to negative pressure, is what we're finding. Not so much morality arguments. And so I would say there's sort of been multiple waves of major organizing efforts here. We had a number of protests that were happening in the fall right following October 7th. So on October 13th, there was a big vigil. There was a big student protest outside of our student center with hundreds of people on October 19th, which was like the first major protest event centered on the campus. We had this sort of climactic event on November 9th, which was a sit-in that was held all day in the lobby that's at the main entrance to the school coming off of Mass Ave. And essentially lies were told about what was going on. Some people alleged that Jewish students were prevented from attending classes, which was completely fabricated. There are many different entrances into MIT. We also never even blocked the hallway at all. You just had people sitting in the lobby, but everything was always accessible. And actually, MIT Jews for Ceasefire formed pretty much the day after that protest, in part because I think we were so sick of having our identity used as a way, like as a cudgel against all of the protests, which we were already a part of on this campus. Like we were all present already, but I think we sort of wanted people to understand that Jews were a part of the movement, just one part, but definitely a part of this movement. After that demonstration, the administration issued suspension threats to students and honestly tied students up in really horrible and just punishing, very time-intensive disciplinary hearings for months on end. And so there was still a lot of organizing happening on the campus, but the sort of visible protest parts were temporarily pulled back. Some of that was because there were a bunch of foreign students involved. We were trying to figure out how to assess risk, basically, for people, individuals. But during that time, there were these effective organizing campaigns to pass an undergraduate referendum and a graduate student referendum in support of a ceasefire, divestment from the Israeli military and the occupation, and also reinstatement of the student group. So I think about a month ago, the undergraduate assembly passed a referendum with 64% of the vote supporting those calls, the ceasefire call, the divestment call, and the reinstatement call. And then the graduate student union just passed a referendum a few weeks ago with 70% of the vote supporting. So essentially, we've been building up these pieces of evidence that actually the school is on our side, which administration always denies. They're sort of saying that we're a small group of people who feel like we know what everyone else thinks. And now we have these pieces of evidence that show the student body stands behind us. And that was just happening as the encampment was bringing up at Columbia. Also, a bunch of the disciplinary hearings had sort of come to a close. And I think the timing sort of coalesced to bring an encampment to MIT campus. This was this past Sunday at 7 p.m. is when ours went up.
And so what exactly is an encampment for me, including me, who are not familiar? What does it entail?
So I guess in the most literal description is that we have a set of tents that are set up. Mm-hmm. We call it the liberated zone. In the middle of it, there are sort of tents that aren't meant to be slept in, but just protect food and supplies and things like that. In our encampment, the tents are named for places in Palestine. And so you'll see cities within Gaza, Gaza City or Khan Yunis, Rafah, but also you see Haifa, you see Jerusalem. And I think the idea was basically that we have all these Palestinian students in this school who are from different parts of Palestine and have never been able to visit other parts of Palestine where maybe their families lived. And so people who are 48ers, maybe who are from Jerusalem, who have never been to Gaza, have never been able to go. And in our liberated zone, anyone can walk between any part of these places, right? And so that was sort of that's the sort of idea we have that we're expressing through our encampment. I think we're all, part of the point of camping for us is also to think about the fact that so many Palestinians who live in Gaza are living in tents and have been for many months now through bitter cold and now like horrific oppressive heat. And I think the other part of it is that it sort of harkens to our past as a campus in protest movements. There was a shantytown erected at MIT in protest of South African apartheid in 1987. So I think we have these like historical resonances, sort of the solidarity with Palestinians, the fact that other encampments are springing up, and then this idea of what it would look like to have a liberated Palestine where people can move freely between places, and this connection between Palestinian families is sort of brought back for many people.
That's a good idea. So it's both educational and also it's kind of a way to show solidarity, as I get it, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously what we're going through sleeping in our tents is nothing. And it's kind of ridiculous in some ways to draw the parallel to what Palestinians are going through in Gaza. But I think that it's more symbolic as a gesture. And then I guess I should say that in the encampment are teach-ins and art builds and music events. We actually, Jews for Ceasefire, held a Seder there on Tuesday. Shabbat yesterday. Sorry, go ahead.
Seder for Passover?
Yes, for Passover. We did a Passover Seder on Tuesday.
Okay. And so have you had any, okay, so I've seen other campuses have had issues with infiltrators trying to cause trouble where somebody who's not really a student will come and say something anti-Semitic or be really aggressive counter-protesters just getting in people's face to get them to react. Like, have you guys had any such problems?
Yes, we have. I think from the beginning, we've had sort of individuals coming up to try and bother people in the encampment to sort of assert that they have a right to be in the middle of the space, doing whatever they want to, but it was at sort of an individual scale. Yesterday, we had basically a colonization attempt. That's what it felt like. It was pretty absurd from a group of mostly Israeli students, a couple of American Jews, and also professors, a large number of professors who came into the camp. Yes, our professors wrapped in the Israeli flag, wearing their IDF tags, singing Hatikva, which is the Israeli national anthem. So that was a fun event for all of us. I think we had sort of been anticipating something like that because I think our understanding is, and this is the same thing that happened at the November 9th protest in the lobby that led to all this disciplinary stuff, that people were going to come to agitate, to try and make something violent or seemingly unsafe happen so that administration would crack down on the encampment itself. And so like with that in mind, because the encampment is our negotiating leverage to force admin to come to the table and talk to us about divestment, it's very important to us right now to keep it going. And that's to say nothing of the community building space that it's provided us. I think we knew that if agitators came, it was just really important for everybody to stay calm and not engage, even though it was kind of insufferable to sit and listen to them for an hour and a half. But yeah, they stayed for 90 minutes. Then they left. They sang us Shalom Aleichem, which means we brought you peace. And then they left the encampment. So I think, it was a stunt. They filmed themselves. Daily Wire put a video of them in there singing their national anthem up yesterday. I don't know if they feel proud of that. I think it's pretty embarrassing. But yeah, it's that, I think essentially that disruptors are coming to try and prove to MIT administration that it's not safe that this thing remains, even if they're the reason that it's not safe. I think they're actually right that the administration doesn't really care why. If anything chaotic happens there, then it becomes grounds for getting rid of our encampment.
That makes sense. Have you had any trouble with the police, either like local, like campus police or actual Boston police?
We have not had trouble so far. We have not seen Cambridge PD yet.
Cambridge, sorry, not Boston.
Yeah, I think we have not seen, as far as I know, Cambridge PD around. MIT police have been around. They erected a barrier around our encampment. It's sort of far away from the tents itself. It seems like they have been around to protect us so far, but I don't think anyone is naive enough to think that that is always going to be the case. I think the school, like I said, really doesn't want there to be any incident. And so far, what that has looked like is if like a single agitator comes up, the MIT police will sort of insert themselves and ask them to leave.
Yeah, the Northeastern, the police left, and then actually they came back in riot gear. Was that yesterday or today? Like they went back in to arrest people. So,
no, I think no one thinks that the police are a friend long term or something. But it as so far, I mean, it's kind of funny. We all know the chief of police because they've been sending police out to all of our events all year long. MIT has taken a stance that police need to be present whenever anything is happening relating to Palestine consistently. And they've staffed police full time in the lobbies, the same lobby entrance. They had never been there before. Like I said, I was a student here from 2009 to 2013. I also was back for a year before this started. And there's a new level of police presence on campus now, but especially around us. And I feel like we all know the police chief and, things have been okay. I sort of suspect that if arrests happen, and I think they definitely could happen, that they will come from Cambridge PD. Because I think they want to believe that they can maintain a good relationship between the MIT police and the students in the Coalition for Palestine by, I think, taking them out of that kind of situation. I think they're wrong. Like we're all already deeply suspicious of the police. But yeah, we have not so far had trouble. But there were a number of students from our encampment who went to the Emerson encampment when arrests were happening there a few nights ago. Several MIT students were arrested. People were hit in the face with batons. I think for a lot of undergrads, this was their first direct experience with state violence. And it was pretty horrifying and traumatizing. But yeah, on our campus, we've been not lucky so far, but which they just have not unleashed that tactic on us so far, I would say.
That's good. So it seems like you haven't had too much trouble with the police, but you had some isolated agitators. And the professor thing is, so to me, I think that's so unprofessional for professors to get involved in student activities. But that's another story. Do you feel like you are reaching this is helping you reach your goals? Are you getting broader support? Like, what do you feel like? Is it, you think it's helping?
Well, I think the encampment has created a lot of leverage for negotiation with administration. Administration had not come to the table I'm not on the negotiations team. We have a steering committee that sort of works across the whole coalition together. But they had not come to the table to discuss any of the demands that were coming out of this coalition all year. Since the encampment went up, they've been asking to meet. And in fact, they've been now sitting in negotiations meetings with steering for the last few days. And we know that they feel pressure to get rid of the encampment before their graduation events, before anything that will generate press that's bad for them. Essentially, they seem very motivated by their lawyers and their PR team. So I think it has been helpful to us in that sense. It also has, I think, brought a community space for people to be in literally 24/7 on the campus in a way that we hadn't had before. Now it's sort of like if you're someone who organizes or participates in Coalition for Palestine stuff, you have a space to go and be thinking about strategy and what we're going to do and things we want to work on all the time, which we had not had, of course. And we have members of the community coming in literally all the time to help us. People come to visit, people who feel like they don't know how to help and that they're horrified by what's happening in Gaza, but they don't see where the outlet is for them as just a regular person who lives in Cambridge or Boston are coming by to the encampments and helping us all the time.
I was going to ask you actually, because we were wondering, a bunch of my friends were talking about this, and it's like, how can people help the students and stuff? Like, I don't know, like with the agitation.
It's not too far from you.
Huh?
Yeah. Oh, because you're not far away. Yeah.
Yeah, when it's from Boston.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that from the phone number. Yeah, I think that so we had a Venmo, but honestly, we have too much money. We had like $9,000 in it the last time I saw it, and which just grows. It doesn't ever go down. Mm-hmm. People bring us hot food at meals. Yeah, no, well, it's like we posted, I think, like I said, I think there are a lot of people who are thinking that they don't know how to get involved, but they see that students have this way of doing activism, of targeting institutions with clear complicity, and they want to jump in there. So I think some of it is like, you can come visit. I think that talking about that the encampments as positive things in ways that gather media attention are really helpful to us.
Mhm.
Like I said, it feels like in many ways, and I don't think this is new at all. I think protest movements have always relied on media coverage and being able to control media narratives to get things done. And so I think in many ways for us, we're asking our alumni, for example, to call in and say that they want the encampments and they'll stop donating if it goes away. Because we honestly know that I don't see us as being in opposition to Zionist students at the school, because our opposition is the administration who won't change policy. Like, I don't have any interest in arguing with other students. They don't have any power. They're basically irrelevant to what we're trying to do in many ways, but they are very, very effective at generating media pressure and alumni pressure. And so for us, I think that finding ways to generate media pressure that actually supports us and lets us keep this leverage point is a huge thing. And I should think of more specifics for how to do that. But I think
Well, you
that's
can
sort of where our
always-
goals are.
Well,
Yeah.
one thing is that if you guys have a video compilation, you can always give it to me and I can play it. We get, actually on our Twitter stream, we get more, like hundreds of people. And so we and my mailing list is huge. So if you have any video compilations, any messages, we can always do that for you.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm sure that would be immensely helpful.
What this is actually very interesting to me, because I didn't realize the extent that MIT is actually involved with the Israeli government. I knew that they were involved with defense contractors, but I had no idea that they were involved directly with the Israeli Ministry of Defense. So it seems like it's kind of, as an educational institute, it would seem some morally unconscionable to do that, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, we certainly agree. I also just want to say that Netanyahu is an alum of the school 2 times.
Whoa,
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, he was actually in the School of Architecture and Planning, where I am, not in urban studies, but in architecture itself. So all year we've sort of been like, it would be nice if someone would say something about someone who's architecting a genocide, having been an alum at our school, but of course, nothing has happened. Yeah, I totally agree. I think as a university that educates students to be so directly involved with genocidal research and sort of say, well, that's status quo and that's what the United States does, which is essentially what they're saying, is like, well, US policy is that we're allies and there's nothing we can do. And also lots of people disagree. That's kind of what they say. And so, yeah, for us, I think we believe the moral arguments and we've made them. Like I said, I don't really feel like a university administration is super responsive to moral arguments. And so pressure seems like the way, but I agree. It does seem immoral.
Yeah, and that's a very disingenuous argument, because what they are not they're not the U.S. government. Like, no one is holding a gun to their head to have a contract with Israeli Department of Defense. They're choosing to do so, regardless of what the U.S. government does. They can choose differently.
Someone's asking in the comments, weren't MIT robot dogs being used in Israel prior to this? Are those dogs were they designed at MIT, the robot dogs they're using?
I think they were. When I was an undergrad, I remember them being like displayed in people's labs along the Infinite, I'm pretty sure, which is like the big corridor that connects all the buildings. And I just saw one being trained out in the central courtyard that's sort of in front of the big dome, the iconic image of MIT, the other day. It was saying to my friends in the Coalition for Palestine, like, our next thing should be having them stop doing this kind of thing in public. Like, it's shameful to have this stuff out there when we know what they're used for. So yeah, no, I think MIT complicity honestly goes way beyond just Israeli Ministry of Defense contracts, which total not a ton of money, because we also are like in close collaboration with Lockheed Martin, with Raytheon. We're doing tons of DoD research, and we know that the DoD research is also being used directly and sold to Israel. And so it's just, I think, like I said, we've taken this sort of incremental approach where we find very direct things, we ask them to get rid of the direct thing, and we build power through the effectiveness of those demands being met. And sort of open the door for asking these questions more and creating new processes for evaluating. I think that is what we're hoping will come out of it. But the depths of the stuff are way deeper than those projects. And I think the robot dogs are from MIT and certainly have been used, but I mean, in many other horrible situations as well.
That sounds horrific. And the fact that next time they do it, somebody should take a video of the training robot dog.
Oh, I have one. Of course,
Oh,
I did
send it
take
to
one
me.
that day. Yes, I could send it over.
Okay. Well, one thing that I'm worried about, or not worried about, but I have a questions about, is that most students graduate within like 3 to 4 years, unless you're a PhD, you might stay there for a while. How do you know that this movement will live on after graduation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually graduating this summer. And I think a bunch of people are graduating, but we have been sort of trying to think about longevity. I think, one of the concerns for me this whole time has also been that I think people are so animated by the just horror of what's happening in Gaza. But the reality is that, like, I'm Jewish and I grew up with Zionism around me. And I feel like I've actually been pretty activated around this issue for a long time because of that, in a way, because of being introduced to Israel and Zionism early and rejecting it early, but being engaged around it. I think people don't understand horrors that are less visible and less visual than the genocide as it currently is existing. And so from the beginning, I've been thinking maybe the scariest moment is as soon as the bombing stops and people sort of tune out. And then what happens, right? And I think we already have seen the Jared Kushner discussion. So I think there's both a question about how a university keeps a movement going when there's turnover, but also how a movement keeps going, period, especially when the circumstances change. And we've been sort of doing these young organizer trainings where we're intentionally trying to bring in freshmen and sophomores, first year PhD students to come in and be trained as organizers, expecting them to sort of move up. We don't have a super hierarchical movement with official leadership, but even so, it's like people take on more responsibility over time and doing things like this, doing media and stuff like that. And so I think there is a conscious effort to build something sustainable that's happening. The challenges are sort of intrinsic of the turnover of students. We also have a faculty arm, which is interesting. They don't get into the fray like the Israeli faculty do, but we have this group, the Alliance of Concerned Faculty. Some of them have been doing Palestine-related activism for decades, but mostly outside of their role as professors, not entirely. Some people have worked with students who are in the West Bank as a way of sort of engaging over long periods of time. So yeah, I think that's a great question. It's like it's a core question for us, is how to sustain. But I think for us, it's been about training younger organizers mostly, and trying to already be talking about what the long-term vision is. It's like, we don't just want a ceasefire. We want the end of apartheid. We want the end of an occupation. We want to have campaign goals that reflect that perspective. And also, honestly, this is a group that talks about collective liberation a lot. Like, we are oriented around Palestine, but the choice to be the coalition against apartheid was in part made because I think people wanted to highlight that these struggles are shared, that liberation struggles are tied up with each other, and that it made sense to sort of frame this as something that went beyond just questions of Palestine, but also could speak to so many other contexts, especially, I hate this phrase, but in countries in the global South.
I call them third world countries because it accurately depicts the devastation caused by imperialism.
Yeah, it's like we're stuck with these colonial terms and these imperialism related terms for referring to basically the entire world. It's like everywhere but Europe, the United States, Australia, or whatever is not the global South. I don't like the terminology, but I haven't thought of something better.
Yeah, no, you're right. A lot of people don't realize this, but Israeli police frequently train American police in their doings. So Black Lives Matter and the issue of Israel is very related to each other.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of discussion about the deadly exchange, which is what you're referring to here. And I think there were a lot of people thinking about it when they were experiencing sort of police brutality, exposure to like pepper spray and tasers and things that we know are technologies. I remember people saying that they were involved in stuff in Ferguson. I feel like someone was just telling me that they actually were involved in those protests in St. Louis, in the St. Louis area, and that they realized when they were looking down at the tear gas canisters that they were the same ones used in the West Bank.
Wow.
And our MIT police have actually participated in the deadly exchange. I think that has been one of the talking points.
Wow. Even university police who are not actually real police? Wow.
Yeah, they really aren't real police, honestly, but they still apparently need to go over and be trained by Israeli police forces. So
wow.
Yeah, like Cop City and what's happening at Emory with the pro-Palestinian stuff, that's like connecting too. Like they're kind of connecting those two protests. So.
I need to change my battery 1 minute.
No, it's okay.
So
Yeah, no, I saw that. Like the tactics being used on the protesters at Emory, which were horrific, by the way. Like
Oh, yeah.
watching videos from there were just deeply disturbing. I mean, it's not same with seeing SWAT teams show up at USC or the state troopers at UT Austin. I think I saw some stuff from Ohio State University that looked pretty horrifying. And I think what happened at Emerson, it happened at 3:30 in the morning. So there's like less footage of that stuff, but it's also really horrifying. But yeah, it's the same exact things they're doing at the Cop City protest that they're bringing onto a private university campus, which I have a lot of questions about. Like, it seems to me like the schools have a lot of control. And that they're actually allowing this to happen is something that I hope lawsuits are coming, basically.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Like, I mean, what happened like what I saw from Emerson was from above, like someone filming, and I think they knew someone in the crowd, and it just looked like the cops just like kettled them into that alleyway and were just.
Well, I think it's actually interesting. Emerson doesn't have a campus, and so they had their protests. They had their encampment in an alleyway because it was a dead end, because it wasn't blocking traffic. I think they were choosing a place that was sort of least disruptive. To be honest, I live in Boston, and the idea of sleeping in an alley with the rat situation I have behind my apartment voluntarily is like disgusting and disturbing. So power to them. But they were sleeping in an alley because they don't have any campus or grass. And then I think, that ended up putting them in a situation where they were fairly closed in, and it's just really bad. I think it was very traumatizing, like I said, for students.
Yeah, I didn't realize they set up in the alley. So, because I'm like, oh, how did they get like out? They're all in the alley. Like they just kettled them in there. Like, I'm like, oh, but I mean, it's got to be. I mean, you guys have to be seeing all this stuff happening everywhere else, like the more violent stuff, and worry about that too. Like, it could come at any time too. So, that I can't imagine worrying about that. You know what I mean? Like, would but Cambridge cops, I don't know, not as not historically as violent as Boston cops.
As Boston PD. Well, I think that's not a coincidence that Cambridge is also like a far whiter city, and I think like all of these policing things are tied together. But I think honestly we're more afraid of doing nothing. Like, we're horrified to be inside of this country, inside of our university, saying nothing. But it is a scary situation to be exposing people to all kinds of brutality. And I think also for a lot of students here, like, we all have different immigration statuses. Like, I'm a white American who I feel like pretty safe inside of this movement. And even, I'm not saying that the police wouldn't do anything to me, but I'm also a woman. I think all those things help you when the police come. But it's just sort of the risks that people take on by being in these encampments. Some people are here as what's it called? People who are sort of, I can't remember the word for this now, but people who are seeking some kind of like safety here. There's a word for it that I'm just missing. And because of that, like, they're here as refugees, basically. They're asylum seekers. That's the word. So we have asylum seekers. We have people on visas. We have people who are Palestinian, who are here from Palestine. And then we have all of these American students, but a lot of people who have never done protests really intentionally risking arrest before. And so, I think that we're nervous, but for us, we also see it as leverage. I think the school doesn't want to bring police out to beat up students. That's not to say they won't, but if they do, I think there will be consequences for that too, and they understand that. And so we are, like I said, I think for us, the bigger thing is that doing nothing is more horrifying than risking police violence. Yeah.
And MIT being like you said, like, Cambridge is more of a white part of, in the city and stuff like that, like right outside the city. And, but also it being MIT, like it's these are all your STEM people, like this is all like the people that they want, like, building stuff in the military. So maybe that helps too in that sense too, like where you're looking to and stuff. Like Northeastern, where that's located, is a little
No, and I wish I had mentioned this earlier too about organizing efforts that have happened on campus, because we had this Scientists Against Apartheid pledge that was launched in December, which was an individual pledge that was withholding work from 6 companies. They were BDS selected. It's like Project Nimbus at Google, Lockheed, Boeing. So I think there were 3 others. But I think the idea, one of the things to me that's exciting as someone who's an alum who was in like a pure STEM field the first time that I was here, is that I think for a lot of people, this campaign has sort of raised awareness of the fact that our work, which I think scientists and engineers often come into the field hoping to solve the world's problems and find themselves being asked to do harm, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think that because of what's happening in Gaza, because of the Scientists Against Apartheid pledge campaigns, there are a lot more students who are thinking earlier on in their careers about what they are willing to do, where they're willing to work, where their work goes, like questions that honestly were absent for me as an undergraduate. I think I was very political, but I didn't feel like they were part of the conversation on the campus when I was here 15 years ago. And they are definitely here now. And I think a lot of that is because of Gaza. I don't want to be corny and say like, oh, Palestine's going to free us all, because I know that like that's, but I do think that there's an element of this. This is a conscience raising event that has been very meaningful on this campus, I think.
Yeah, no, I see that. That is actually, I can see where would that be happening. So.
Well, I have, I don't know how much time you have left, but I have one last question. Have you had any contact with people in either West Bank or Gaza? Your organization, not you personally.
So we have had some. I think, first of all, we have a bunch of students who are from Gaza, who are from the West Bank, who are 48ers and who are from East Jerusalem and Bethlehem. And so they have contacts which have become contacts. Interestingly enough, our professors had a lot of contacts to students in universities over there, which became sort of ways that we were in contact. I think that mostly those things have been sort of us trying to show support in whatever way we can. And often that really looks like moral support right now, where people sort of feel like someone sees what's happening to them and that those people are their peers at a university that they know of and maybe already had some relationship to, research with professors who are here. But yeah, I think we do have some of it's just through our current students, and some of it is through their connections on the ground.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen videos where the Israeli military has destroyed so many universities in Gaza. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's something that we've been bringing directly to the administration all year. It's like whatever crisis on campus there is, maybe the real one is the one that's happening to universities in Gaza, which don't exist anymore. I mean,
there are no campuses there anymore.
Yeah, it's very clear that part of the approach that the Israeli Ministry of Defense, IOF, has taken is just to destroy Gaza so much and all of its institutions, including its institutions of learning, but also hospitals or civil governments kind of stuff. And so that the place is unlivable. And so we keep bringing this forward, like, as a university, don't you feel an obligation to speak up about the destruction of places of learning, about the right to education, about all of these questions to me that are not even implicitly part of our mission, but explicitly parts of statements of value that the school puts out about what it stands for. And it's still like one of the points that we try to bring to them as much as possible. I think it's very, I wish that we got more traction through that kind of thing, but it's certainly something that's talked about very frequently. And then sort of as an actionable thing related to that, I think there have been a lot of thoughts about how to bring educational opportunity to people, especially there are a lot of people who are refugees from Gaza and Egypt who actually could sort of like have people go out there and do hands-on learning stuff. There are language barriers that often need to be addressed. So Arabic speakers are much more useful in these settings. There's an effort called Gaza Open University, which I think people have been engaging with at MIT for a while now, but sort of ways for students to be able to keep making progress towards earning their degrees with support from people all over the world in educational institutions. And yeah, that is a salient question. I think we're thinking frequently about what we as university students owe to other students and what we as a university owe to other universities, and trying to turn that into some kind of concrete action while we're also making our divestment campaigns and thinking about these military issues that are especially key at MIT and have been for a long, long time.
One last question. You also said you mentioned that you were a Jewish student. Have you had any, and you grew up in like a Zionist environment? Have you had any backlash from members of your community that you considered were close or family members because of your activism?
Yeah, so I should say, like, my family's not particularly Zionist. I think they were sort of knee-jerk Zionists, but not super thoughtful and not super committed was part of it. And so over time, I started asking questions when I was maybe 13 about why there were apartheid walls. And I was really concerned when the blockade went up around Gaza. I was sort of precocious, maybe. But also, no one ever answered my questions sufficiently when I would ask them. So I just kept asking them more and more and reading more on my own. And I think because of that, the people in my life who didn't appreciate my point of view around this issue kind of went away a long time ago, which has been nice for me. I haven't really lost community. When I came to MIT the first time in 2009, I never went to Hillel because it's explicitly Zionist. They would always try to get us to take birthright trips, which I thought were
did they recruit right on campus?
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the big things that Hillel does is try to get people to go on birthright. I think they very explicitly see one of the pillars of their mission as being that Jewish students should all form a relationship with Israel. So I never went to Hillel. That's kind of the end goal. I think actually the thing that has come out of all this for me as a Jewish student and for a lot of other, I mean, that was many years ago. I think I've found meaningful Jewish community since then, not inside of institutional spaces so much, but just inside of my own community through working with, if not now, or Jewish Voice for Peace, which I've done a little bit of organizing with both of them in the past. And to some extent I have in this last year as well. I think for us on campus, one of the amazing things has been that when we formed Jews for Ceasefire, we were sort of responding to this immediate need to combat a narrative around the protests being anti-Semitic as being unsafe spaces for Jews and fundamentally anti-Jewish, which I just could not disagree with more. But on top of that, I think we found that there were a lot of Jewish students who really wanted to be in Jewish community, who wanted to have spaces for Shabbat, who wanted to be able to do things like Passover, but not in a way that didn't align with their political and moral values. And so we have kind of gotten out of it a new, it's not super religious, but somewhat religious, maybe cultural Jewish space, and have opened up discussions with the school about bringing in a third rabbi who's not affiliated with either Hillel or Chabad to have an official option that students are presented with when they're given sort of the list of all of these different religious support offices and rabbis, or they're called chaplains here, so that people can just right away opt into a space that's not Zionist, that is also Jewish. And I think, so I have experienced mild anti-Semitism from Zionist protesters. They say to us things like, you're a self-hating Jew, or you're lying about being Jewish, or God made a mistake at making you a Jew. Yeah, we hear that stuff. That's like not totally new to me. So I think that I've been personally a little bit less traumatized by it than some of the other Jewish students. But in the process, we've also had this interesting thing where I feel more connected to Jewish community at MIT than I ever was before we created this sort of alternative. And so it's just an interesting, it's hard to talk about the good things that have come out of a genocide. I really don't like doing it in some ways, but it's kind of inarguable that community building, both for Jewish students who are inside of the movement, but also for the movement in general, has been a huge win for us during this time. I would obviously give it all up to not be in the situation.
I know. I mean, without a community, nothing can happen. Like you can't.
Sure.
A community is essential. Like without one person cannot change the world.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's just I think there's been a huge value add for a lot of people in terms of just the community itself, community that we didn't see as possible before. For example, the faculty have told us that maybe many of them individually held these views for a long time and did work outside of their jobs advocating for Palestine or supporting Palestinian work in some way. But now for the first time, because of the student organizing across the campus, the faculty sort of found each other too, and now have a whole new kind of community that's more morally centered than anything that they had at MIT before, and that they've just derived huge value from that. And it's something that people have been here for decades and have not ever had. So I think it's been the way that it's sort of reverberated into our spaces has been interesting and meaningful. And I hope that what comes out of it is just an activist core that can continue on. And that will be the value that it brings sort of more broadly and not just to us as individuals.
That's great. So does your organization have a website, a place where people can learn more about them?
Yeah, there is. I'm just thinking that there's a tiny URL. Basically, the MIT CAA, which is sort of the main group in some ways to go to, has an Instagram. The MIT Jews for Ceasefire has an Instagram. The MIT CAA is MIT_CAA. That one's easy. There's a link
CAA.
tree. Yes. And there's a link
Okay.
tree too that's /MIT CAA. That one has no underscore. So it's just linktree/MIT CAA. And then Jews for Ceasefire, which is the group that I helped start, also has an Instagram, which I'm looking because I am not on Instagram, so I need to look at what it is. But let me see. This one is MIT Jews for Ceasefire, all one word.
Okay.
So, which, spelled as you expect.
Jews FOR, not for, right?
Yes, FOR on Instagram. I think it's 4 on Twitter. We've just made it maximally confusing by diversifying our different ways of writing. But yes, that's where they are.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
You.
And if I guess any freshmen are incoming to MIT, be sure to check out this organization, Jews for Ceasefire.
Yeah, please. And the Coalition Against Apartheid, which is sort of our group for everybody, which we're all sort of a part of multiple groups inside of this umbrella, is another great place to land. So if it's relevant.
Not just freshmen, but any MIT current students, of course, is what I meant.
Yes, that too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to just say thank you for coming. And if anything comes up, definitely just reach out to us because we'll get some information out for you and stuff like that too.
Yes, thank you so much for your time and have a good one.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
So that was a really good interview.
It really was.
My camera stopped working when I tried to change the battery. It's couldn't recognize. It sometimes happens. It couldn't. Nomo Popo kindly linked the Instagram here. Thank you, Nomo Popo. Yeah, so I had to use the backup camera where you can see kind of my apartment a little bit. But it's clean today. It was clean today.
I know my place was a mess. I realized when I put it out because it was weird having the three of us all like that. So
mine is only clean just for today.
Did you see what Teresa gave you?
What?
Did you see what Teresa gave? I couldn't put it. I didn't want to put it up during the interview. Teresa gave you $40. It's on the screen right now.
Thank you so much, Teresa. That was so sweet of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt the interview, or I would have thrown it up there normally. But
thank you. I really needed it. Thank you. So yeah. So it's kind of funny because Professor Michael Popov's interview we recorded a little while back. And last week was Lenin's 154th birthday. And so he actually also talks about this theme, but he does it from another way because a lot of people in Russia, of course, are crying about the Soviet Union not existing. And I mean, the Soviet nostalgia here is last time I came here in 2019, I did an interview on the streets of Moscow where I asked everyone, in fact, I did 8 extra interviews to see if anyone preferred capitalism, and I could not find one.
Yeah, no, I remember those interviews.
Yeah. So I went above and beyond. First, I tried to make it balanced and see if, and I couldn't find any. I literally tried, and I could not find a single person who preferred capitalism over communism.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he's kind of speaking to that, where people miss the Soviet Union, but they're kind of just sitting and crying and not organizing and fighting for a Soviet reunion. And so this is why we got Don't Cry, Organize. But he talks about Lenin and the fall, a little bit about the fall of, just about a lot of different stuff. And that this interview is going to be for 51 minutes. So check us out. And if I can get my camera working, I'll be back after that.
Okay. I'll let you guys know if we're coming back or not. Okay. All right.
This is my backup camera. Пожалуйста, скажите, как вас зовут?
Попов Михаил Васильевич.
И вы занимались как профессором в Санкт-Петербурге, да?
В Санкт-Петербургском государственном университете я был профессором сначала в Институте повышения квалификации, а потом в Институте философии Санкт-Петербургского государственного университета.
И у вас очень много книг, которые вы...
Ну, всего у меня опубликовано порядка 375 работ.
Пожалуйста, скажите больше о вашем фонде рабочей академии.
Поскольку товарищи, которые понимали, какие события происходят в Советском Союзе, видели, что началась контрреволюция, поэтому, мы начали создавать разные организации, которые должны были действовать в тех условиях, которые сложились, потому что коммунисты не должны были бросить все и, так сказать, и плакать. Вот. Во-первых, мы организовали создание партии. В 1991 году КПРФ, хотя ее не запрещали, а, так сказать, прекратили деятельность на заводах. Они просто разошлись и все. Вот. А мы буквально через месяц собрали съезд в Нижнем Новгороде и учредили Российскую коммунистическую рабочую партию. Наши некоторые сочувствующие из КПРФ говорили, что вас не зарегистрируют. Нас зарегистрировали. Самое интересное, мы подали документы, и нас зарегистрировали, и была зарегистрирована коммунистическая партия снова, буквально через несколько месяцев. Правда, в этой вновь зарегистрированной партии мы сразу обнаружили тенденции отрицательные, то есть попытки, так сказать, оттеснить рабочих, опять сделать так, чтобы только, так сказать, какие-то чиновники партийные командовали, которые раньше были партийными чиновниками. Поэтому две комиссии Российской коммунистической рабочей партии идеологической комиссии и комиссии по рабочему движению, идеологическую я возглавлял, а комиссию по рабочему движению возглавлял доктор Тимофеев Евгений Петрович. Мы вышли и учредили в 1993 году, то есть вот через 2 года после этого, Рабочую партию России. Вот Рабочая партия России на сегодняшний день уже имеет 30 лет своей деятельности. Да, и Рабочая партия России организовала систематическое издание газеты «Народная правда». Сейчас она выходит тиражом 55 тысяч экземпляров и распространяется у проходных заводов где-то с 5 до 7 утра. То есть у нас не просто такое обращение к рабочим, так сказать, где-то через средства массовой информации, но мы имеем свое средство массовой информации с достаточно большим тиражом и с большим опытом уже работы. Его возглавляет сейчас Золотов Александр Владимирович, профессор, доктор экономических наук, действительный член Перовской академии наук и заведующий кафедрой Нижегородского государственного университета. Поэтому, так сказать, мы такой высокий уровень держим, и через газету мы обеспечиваем связь с рабочими. Кроме того, 2 раза в год мы проводим такое мероприятие, как Российский комитет рабочих. Это, можно сказать, постоянно действующий семинар Федерации профсоюзов России, прокоммунистической федерации, во главе которой стоит профсоюз авиадиспетчеров и его замечательный руководитель. Вот. Кроме того, мы такую установили норму, что на Российский комитет рабочих должны приехать те, и могут приехать те, кого делегировало 5 рабочих. Неважно, члены они партии, не члены партии.
Это что,
вот если 5 человек вас делегировало, как рабочего, и 5 человек подписались под вами, что направляем на Российский комитет рабочих вот такого-то, то вот эти товарищи, сказать, являются делегатами Российского комитета рабочих. Он проходит в одном полугодии, потом во втором полугодии. Сейчас вот у нас готовится заседание Российского комитета рабочих в первом полугодии, а потом будет после лета проходить заседание Российского комитета рабочих. Поэтому мы вот эту задачу, которую не могла решить вот в последние годы своей жизни КПСС, иметь твердую такую поддержку рабочего класса, связь с рабочим классом, мы ее осуществляем. В нашей газете, буквально внизу, на каждой, на страницах, указаны телефоны тех товарищей, к которым можно обратиться для вступления в партию, для того, чтобы написать что-то в газету и так далее. То есть мы в этом смысле действуем очень открыто, вот, используя те возможности, которые есть в современном российском обществе. А в современном российском обществе нет конституции, Конституция не запрещает какой бы то ни было идеологию. Ну, раз не запрещает, мы считаем, что господствующей идеологией у нас должна быть коммунистическая идеология. И, соответственно, и действуем. Вот, поэтому каких-то претензий к нам никто никогда не предъявлял. Вот, никто нам, хоть работать не мешал, жаловаться, поэтому я вот через общественность и через средства массовой информации не хочу. И если мы еще не имеем достаточной поддержки рабочих и еще недостаточно нашего влияния, ну, то это значит, что нам надо лучше работать. Да. Только и всего. И не плакать, а заниматься тем, что должны. Мы должны помогать создавать коллективные договоры на предприятиях, вести классовую борьбу на предприятиях, повышать зарплату, сокращать рабочее время. Мы выступаем за 6-часовой рабочий день, потому что при таком рабочем дне, какой сейчас, какую бы то ни было, так сказать, такую общественную работу вести рабочим очень тяжело. Наверное, вы знаете, что в 1917 году официально у нас был 11,5 часов рабочий день.
Сколько длился рабочий день во время Советского Союза?
Нет, это не во время, это было...
Я помню.
Да,
я могу сравнить.
Да, так вот, нет, значит, тут это было не во время Советского Союза.
Я знаю, я хочу сравнить между...
А вы сразу сравните, что это было в 17 году. В 17 году петроградские рабочие сами установили 8-часовой рабочий день. Никого не спрашивая. Это называется явочным порядком. То есть они перешли к 8-часовому рабочему дню. Если бы они этого не сделали, им бы не создать советы рабочих, им бы не организовать революцию, и не было бы Советского Союза. То есть не Советский Союз, когда он образовался, сократил рабочее время, а сократили рабочее время, что позволило установить власть Советов, и уже власть Советов потом закрепила этот 8-часовой рабочий день законом. То есть сначала появился 8-часовой рабочий день, а потом появился закон советской власти. А не так, что пришла советская власть, она не пришла, ее рабочий класс привел.
Потом, после разрушения, рабочий день был 11 часа каждый день?
11 нет, у нас рабочий день сейчас 8 часов.
Сейчас я знаю, в 1997 году сколько?
В каком?
В 1980 году сколько было?
В 98-м?
Да.
8-часовой, он никуда не менялся.
Окей.
У нас было время, когда был 7-часовой рабочий день при социализме, потом перешли к 8-часовому рабочему дню и 40-часовая рабочая неделя. То есть вот этот уровень рабочей недели, который установили рабочие в 17 году, установили до Октябрьской революции, до. Наоборот, для того, чтобы провести Октябрьскую революцию, надо было время. Вот это время себе установили рабочие и совершили Октябрьскую революцию. Естественно, руководила этим процессом большевистская партия, Ленин, Сталин и их соратники. Вот, и, так сказать, органы на местах. Но на самом деле диктатура рабочего класса, она появилась не сверху, а снизу. Вот так обстояло дело.
И сейчас я вижу современный мир, и есть 7 миллиардов людей, и я думаю, почти 6 миллиардов людей живут как рабов, и Поэтому я думаю, марксизм, ленинизм это очень важно для современного.
Важно не просто марксизм-ленинизм. Вот вы, я еще не, так сказать, не вполне ответил на ваш вопрос, потому что вы спрашивали про фонд рабочей академии.
Да.
Значит, мы, кроме того, что мы создали партию мы решили вот рабочую партию не регистрировать. Поэтому она у нас действует по закону об общественных объединениях. Вот и общественные объединения могут создаваться, и, так сказать, имеют право. Вот мы и создаем. Поэтому нам не надо ходить ни, так сказать, кланяться, чтобы нас зарегистрировали. Ничего не надо. Мы, есть Рабочая партия России, она действует как общественное объединение, на правах общественного объединения. Но мы решили создать еще, чтобы укрепить, так сказать, наши позиции законные, легальные, фонд Рабочей академии. Фонд Рабочей академии, полное название его Фонд Рабочей академии, Фонд содействия обучению рабочих. Такое длинное название связано с тем, что при регистрации тот работник Министерства юстиции, который вот этот вопрос с нами решал, он говорит, ну как же так? Есть вот фонд Рабочей академии, есть это, вы же учите людей, ну так идите в Министерство образования. Нет, я говорю, мы не учим, мы содействуем в обучении. Рабочие сами учатся, а мы содействуем в обучении. И никак я не мог ее убедить, пока я не сказал, вот вы женщина, да, вот я родить-то не могу, а вы можете, а содействовать могу. Так что, короче говоря, нас зарегистрировали, и мы зарегистрированное общественное объединение. Вот я был почти с 93-го по прошлый год, ну, почти 30 лет президентом Фонда Рабочей академии. Сейчас им стал более молодой товарищ Виктор Иванович Галко, наш соратник, кандидат экономических наук. Он, естественно, член Центрального комитета Рабочей партии России и очень толковый, организованный. Ну, а я у него на правах заместителя, то есть вице-президент Фонда Рабочей академии. То есть мы для того, чтобы вести свою работу, мы не вообще, так сказать, призываем, давайте, будем, читайте и так далее, а мы создаем. В том числе мы занимаемся издательской работой. Вот это непосредственно мы подготовили книгу, которая называется «Марксизм-ленинизм. Эпохи диктатуры пролетариата». Здесь вот книжки, тут моя книжка о противоречиях социализма, книжка Виктора Георгиевича Долгова и Ельмеева вместе со мной о том, что нам надо не на стоимость ориентироваться, не на товар, а на потребительную стоимость. А потребительная стоимость, например, техники в том, сколько она сэкономит рабочего времени. Вот если она сэкономит рабочее время, будет сокращение рабочего дня. Если не сэкономит, то никто его вам не даст.
Да, они
вот.
нужно получить.
Так что это очень в этом смысле актуально. И это было написано в то время, когда у нас была вроде контрреволюция, а мы в это время, тем не менее, продолжали эту работу. Поэтому теоретическая работа продолжалась. Вот. Ну, вот эту работу, которую мы сделали, главное в ленинизме, она в разном виде издана. И, скажем, если откроешь интернет и наберешь главное в ленинизме, ее можно приобрести, купить и так далее, или и так прочитать. А вот эту работу я подготовил тогда, когда закончил изучать 55 томов полного собрания сочинений Ленина.
Да, я смотрела, и я хочу переводить это по-английски.
Да, и вот, а поскольку, что я, так сказать, брал там? Ну, то, что является самым главным в ленинизме, а самое главное – это учение о диктатуре пролетариата, и такие наиболее яркие, наиболее важные, и такие вещи, которые забывать нельзя. То есть, если человек этого не знает, то никаким он ленинцем не является.
Да.
Вот такая задача. Кроме того, вот я вам принес и книгу, и две у вас уже книги такие, да. Которые, это книги, которые не нами подготовлены, а мы обратились в соответствующее издательство, издательство «Питер», и это опубликовано издательство тиражом, они примерно по 5000 экземпляров, они продаются. А вот я хочу сказать, что только уже подготовлена сейчас книга, которая называется «Ленин». Ленина, значит, избранная работа. «Покет». Вот в этом же издательстве. Она уже везут из Москвы. Скоро появится. У меня скоро будет 20 экземпляров, потому что мне в договоре написано, что мне отдадут 20 экземпляров, и даже еще деньги заплатят, в которой вот есть произведение Ленина и мои комментарии. Кроме того, следующая будет книжка, она уже тоже на подходе, уже редакционная работа закончена, в издательстве «Питер» будет Сталин своими комментариями, и поэтому о чем это все говорит? Это говорит о том, что надо не быть плачущими революционерами, дескать, вот у нас контрреволюция, мы должны все расплакаться и только и вспоминать, вот жалко, что Ленин умер. Так вы делаете то, что Ленин завещал, то, к чему он призывал, и будет он живой.
Да, Ленин, я видела старый советский плакат,
Да.
Ленин живой, потому что это...
Да, он где он живой?
Перерыв несколько.
Он живой в наших делах. Вот. То есть, чтобы у нас не получилось, что мы только уважаем, поклоняемся. Я наблюдал, как вот в поздние партийные времена, а я был членом Ленинградского обкома партии.
Я смотрела
Да.
вашу речь, это было... Я хочу плакать после вашей речи.
Наверное, на съезде. Это на
Да.
съезде Компартии Российской Федерации.
Да.
Ну, вот там присутствовал Горбачев, там присутствовали предатели. И вот наличие такой речи о чем говорит? Что тот, кто хотел сказать, тот сказал. А не так. Не надо плакаться и говорить, нам не давали, нам и сейчас никто не будет. А никто не будет вам давать, если вы собираетесь быть впереди и быть коммунистом. Вы сами должны действовать, добывать, заставлять, обеспечивать.
И бороться.
И бороться за это дело. Ну вот, то есть в этом смысле борьба у нас продолжается, и я хочу сказать, что с точки зрения пропаганды марксизма-ленинизма, я вот думаю, что вот пока вы здесь находитесь, вы ощутили, никаких ограничений в России сегодняшней нет. Во-первых, нет в Конституции ограничений, в Конституции нет господствующей идеологии. Вот. У нас, как, если вы знаете, было, так сказать, специальное, так сказать, такие голосование проведено по поправкам в Конституцию. Никакой поправки такого рода в Конституции не внесено. Поэтому нету такого, нет господствующей. Я вот лично считаю, что господствующая идеология у нас в России должен быть марксизм-ленинизм. Если кто со мной не согласен, пусть выступает против. Но и даже и выступлений против особенно нет. То есть, просто можно сказать, что люди, которые нам противостоят, с точки зрения теоретической, политической, они полуграмотные и малограмотные. И их претензии там на научность, они не глубокие. А для этого мы берем вот самые серьезные книги, такие как книги Гегеля, «Наука логики».
Да, у меня есть ваши книги здесь.
Да, «Наука логики».
Для меня это было трудно понять, но после я читала вашу книгу, сейчас я понимаю гегельские философии и как это работает с...
Значит, могу вам сказать, что вот это здесь 300 экземпляров. Товарищи коммунисты из Ирана, Фарахани такой. Они перевели на язык фарси и опубликовали 1000 экземпляров на иранском языке. Поэтому у меня дома есть книга, она такая черная. Вы же знаете, у них там справа налево, и вот здесь вот портрет, правда, такая фотография плохая. Вот, так что, и кроме того, недавно наше центральное издательство в Москве выпустило еще раз эту книгу по своей инициативе в коммерческих целях. То есть ситуация такая, что не плакать надо, что нам не дают. А у кого есть что сказать, тот должен говорить. А если он не говорит, а только плачет, то вот это плачущий коммунист – это не коммунист.
Да, конечно. И я хочу узнать, что значит Ленин для вас?
Ну, значит, поскольку Ленин – это прежде всего выражение Ленина, это то, что он делал и писал. Во-первых, дело Ленина не умерло, потому что, так сказать, это революция, контрреволюция – это дело историческое. Тот факт, что Советский Союз был построен, что был создан не только Советский Союз, и социализм был построен, это дело Ленина. Поэтому это дело Ленина, во-первых, есть. Во-вторых, вот это издание его произведений, пропаганда его идей – это тоже дело Ленина. Поэтому если подходить к вопросу о Ленине как к политику, как политик Ленин не только не умер, а он имеет самый высокий рейтинг. Вот у нас самый высокий рейтинг, если вы будете спрашивать, кого больше всего голосов люди отдадут. За Ленина и за Сталина. Вот так обстоит дело в современном Союзе.
Я думаю о Сталине. Когда я приехала
А о Сталине больше даже, чем Ленине, потому что Сталин, как он и говорил, что он верный ученик Ленина, он реализовал вот эту идею Ленина и всю теорию Ленина о построении социализма в СССР. Ленин рассказывал, как его построить, но более конкретно это осуществлял Сталин, и то, как надо его строить, об этом говорят выступления Сталина на съездах. Эти все, так сказать, выступления есть, Сталин у нас издается, Сталин у нас не запрещается, поэтому кто хочет, так сказать, следовать Сталину и Ленину, они должны следовать Сталину и Ленину, и все. Поэтому я еще раз хочу сказать, что у нас не так обстоит дело, что мы с вами там находимся в некотором подполье, нас кто-то преследует. Никто нас не преследует, наоборот. Вы попросили, чтобы я об этом рассказал, я рассказал. Для кого я рассказал? Для всех. Буржуазия будет об этом говорить обязательно.
Но сейчас буржуазия боялась о Ленине. Сегодня я читала статью в Wall Street Journal, и они просто сказали ложь о Ленине, потому что это не важно, это было 100 лет после того, как он умер. Они его буржуазии боятся.
Вот Маяковский писал в поэме Владимир Ильич Ленин, что Ленин и теперь живее всех и живых, наше знамя и оружие. То есть это наша идея, это наша мысль, это наши действия. Поэтому весь вопрос в том, чтобы снова рабочий класс организовался, поднялся, ну или наоборот, или поднялся рабочий класс Индии, очень большой страны. И тогда бы помог бы Советскому Союзу вернуть социализм. А почему должен Советский Союз только помогать Индии или там Китаю или Корее?
Да, помогали Корея тоже.
Да, или Корея. Мы все помогали. А почему не помочь Советскому Союзу, если вот такое случилось в Советском Союзе? Тем более, что, как вы заметили, у нас есть советские коммунисты, которые свою эту работу не бросили и занимаются, и, конечно, они тоже рассчитывать могут на поддержку рабочих и коммунистических партий других стран, в том числе Соединенных Штатов Америки, Англии и так далее.
В Соединенных Штатах Америки коммунистические партии почти, они, все членов, они есть, членов это молодых, но глава они очень старшие, и они думают, это во время холодной войны, и они
Ничего, пусть никто их не трогает там, никто с них не преследует, пусть не рассказывают нам. Мы знаем, что находится в Америке. В Америке было опубликовано произведение на русском языке, все произведения Сталина. Как известно, у нас Хрущев прекратил издание, и тогда именно Американский институт войны, мира и революции взял на себя это издание и издал произведение Сталина на русском языке. И объясняют издатели, что мы не печатаем на английском, потому что это будет двойной перевод. С русского на английский, потом с английского снова кто-то на другие будут языки переводить, а переводить будут. Поэтому мы издаем на том языке, на котором издавалось. Поэтому потом бывший главный редактор коммуниста Ричард Иванович Косолапов взял это и, так сказать, перевел уже эти русское издание, доделал еще дополнительные тома. И сейчас есть у нас произведение Сталина, собрание сочинений Сталина в 18 томах. Вот и в этом участвовали, можно считать, если они, может, и не считаются членами партии коммунистической, но это коммунисты, которые это сделали. И это дело коммунистическое. Поэтому коммунистическое дело, мы знаем, там есть люди в Соединенных Штатах Америки, которые преследуют Хрущева за то, что он обманул тех людей на 20-м съезде. И вот там тот профессор, который с этим выступает, он, может быть, формально не коммунист, но он больше коммунист, чем те вот у нас, которые спрятались. И, так сказать, они не за Сталина, не за Ленина, не за Хрущева, они вообще за себя. Для того, чтобы они сидят, так сказать, что-то такое покупают, где-то работают и все. То есть это люди, которые далеки от политики, от идей.
Да, далекие связи от политики.
От трудящихся, от рабочего класса и так далее.
Да, они не считают себя как рабочий класс. Они
не должны считать себя рабочим классом, но помогать-то рабочему классу надо. Ленин-то не рабочий, и Сталин не рабочий.
Конечно, да.
Но и Маркс не рабочий, и Энгельс не рабочий, конечно. Но они вожди рабочего класса, а рабочий класс нуждается. Что такое научный социализм – это соединение теории и с практикой рабочего движения. Вот только вместе они дают научный социализм, а иначе он будет утопический.
Да, да, это нужно быть диалектически. Какую роль играет диалектический?
Такую роль, что, так сказать, та теория, которую надо, так сказать, развивать, она должна быть построена на самых современных основаниях. Но если мы хотим выиграть, то мы должны придерживаться самой передовой идеологии. Вот, скажем, самая непонятная философия вроде считается гегелевской философией, а вот, скажем, наша партия больше всего делает для развития, вот, так сказать, для изучения гегелевской философии. Я вот уже много лет такой веду кружок. Этот кружок, если вы наберете кружок диалектики просто, вот, зайдете в Яндексе, в Яндекс.Дзене, кружок диалектики, и там появятся кружки за много-много лет. Это систематически. И у нас соперников в этом смысле, даже соревнующихся нету. Потому что мы довели это дело до того, чтобы растолковали все, так сказать, основные положения и полностью разобрали науку логики Гегеля. Сейчас я хочу добавить, что вот необходимо еще понять, что у Гегеля, ну, в какой-то мере, так сказать, идеализм проявился только в третьей книге «Наука логики», потому что первая книга «Учение о бытии». Раз она книга «Учение о бытии», а бытие – это что? Это материя и есть. То есть материя, а материя, как известно, это то единое, что есть. Так вот, материя, взятая как бытие, это вот первая книга «Наука и логики». Потом какая книга? Материя, взятая со стороны ее сущности. Это учение о сущности. Тут ничего идеалистического нет вообще. То есть примечания какие-то там, ссылки на Бога или там перепалку Гегеля с Кантом и с другими там, с идеалистами, с материалистами мы опускаем. Мы сейчас говорим о содержании. То есть 2 тома науки логики, 2 книги науки логики. Потому что у него 2 тома. И первый том – это учение о бытии, учение о сущности, там все материалистическое, ничего там не надо перетолковывать. И как мне говорят, мы пытаемся материалистически истолковывать, а не надо материалистически истолковывать учение о бытии и учение о сущности, они и так материалистически вполне. А вот когда вы берете третья книга «Учение о понятии», там есть механизм, химизм, организм. То есть там есть вот это развитие материи от более ранних форм, более, так сказать, слабых форм, все от более простых, все более сложным. И он доходит до понятия. При этом у него рассматриваются и такие вещи, как жизнь, как телеология, то есть постановка целей и их реализация. Так рассматривается вопрос о том, что постепенно, так сказать, все усложняется развитие. Другое дело, что он там полного порядка нет, он туда поместил понятия не знал куда, и он поэтому их поместил где-то в середину. Вот. А так, в принципе, и третья книга, и это учение о понятии, она во многом материалистическая, потому что все, что касается развития живых существ, там прямо проведена та ссылка, которую потом Энгельс добавлял, что вот есть механизм, химизм, организм. До белков он не дошел, потому что и не было тогда еще исследованы белки, это химия. Органическая химия еще тогда своей роли не сыграла. Поэтому требовать от философа того, чтобы он забежал впереди тех, кто является специалистами по соответствующей форме материи, не следует. Вот поэтому в этом плане там остается только кое-что переставить. Сначала довести до человека, там у него дальше идет телеология, то есть постановка целей и их реализации. И говорится о цели, о средстве, что цель, она и на самом деле и в средстве себя проявляет. Какое средство, такая и цель. Или какая цель, такое и средство. И вот таким образом, если люди, так сказать, будут читать, материалисты должны читать материалистически. А что касается понятий и классификации их, это, конечно, последнее дело. Это отдельный вопрос уже не материалистический, а сугубо относящийся к сфере понятия. Его можно делать в конце. То есть, какие бывают понятия, классификация понятий, умозаключения, всеобщее, особенное, единичное, умозаключение или, так сказать, суждение и так далее. Это, так сказать, вот то, что можно поставить в конце. Но и заканчивается книга Гегеля методом. А что такое метод?
Диалектическим материалом? Диалектизм.
Нет, метод – это осознание формы внутреннего самодвижения содержания. Вот если вы осознали, что вы осознанно делаете, вы поняли, куда двигается само содержание, и этому способствуете, это метод. А если вы не поняли, куда двигается, допустим, природа двигается туда, а вы двигаетесь сюда, то ваш метод никуда не годится.
Да.
То есть метод – это не то, что привносится, а то, что вытекает. Вот, скажем, метод диалектический, он же вырос откуда? Из развития, так сказать, науки. Правильно? То есть, есть вообще метод, если брать метод марксистский, он в чем состоит? 3 источника и 3 составных части марксизма. Когда говорит об этом Ленин, а Энгельс ругался насчет частей и говорил, что это часть лишь у трупа. Потому что какие части, так сказать, это органическая целостность, одно от другого неотделимо. Не может быть политэкономии марксистской без диалектики Гегеля.
Да.
Не может быть ее, потому что там рассматривается диалектика капитала. С самого начала противоречие товара. Там есть, так сказать, стоимость и потребительная стоимость. И с самого начала, с первых страниц идет это вот движение этого противоречия. Потом идет, когда первый том, идет развитие производства от таких более простых форм до более сложных, в учении о сущности. Второй том, там капитал, это что такое? Это движение капитала, это торговля. Вот, то есть, мало того, что вы произвели хлеб здесь, а люди, которые должны его есть, они вот здесь. Так надо еще и доставить. Поэтому все проблемы, связанные с перемещением товара по земле, тоже это что же вид производства? Правильно, материальный, это труд материально-производительный. Одно дело, вот мы с вами, так сказать, передачу записываем, тут ничего материально-производительного нет. А вот если вам нужно будет взять и перенести дискету с этого места в другое место, это будет транспортировка чего? Какого-то материального продукта. Потому что дискета, на которой записано некое, так сказать, полезное действие, это представляет собой потребительную стоимость и так далее. Ну, а третий том уже капитала, он берет процесс капиталистического производства в целом. И то, что он как предпосылку в начале первого тома ставит, что все продается по стоимости. Он объяснил, что на самом деле по стоимости ничего не продается при капитализме. Все продается по ценам производства. А цена производства – это издержки производства плюс средняя прибыль. То есть, если есть капиталисты, они сейчас выступают как единое братство. Неважно, дом они строят, железные дороги или носки, чулки, так сказать, или кофточки. Да. Они должны на данный капитал получить вот эту среднюю прибыль. И поэтому цена – издержки производства плюс средняя прибыль. А издержки производства в этих ценах и считаются. Вот и получается такая система, которая описана в третьем томе «Капитала». Поэтому она неотрывна от диалектики, неотрывна от Гегеля, и она неотрывна от научного социализма, потому что при этом в этом развитии капитализма мы увидим, как развивается рабочий класс, и как его численность растет, и как он совершенствуется.
Да, как этот класс приедет из крестьянский класс.
Да, конечно. Вот это вот как из крестьянского, это у Маркса не показано.
Но это Ленин.
Это Ленин в третьем томе полного собрания сочинений «Развитие капитализма в России».
Да, я уже читала для моих зрителей.
Да, вот это видно, что там и показано, как не только в России, а как во всех европейских странах так и было.
И сейчас во всем мире.
И во всем мире так. Поэтому вот то, что написано в третьем томе полного собрания сочинений, это, так сказать, вопрос всемирной истории и всемирной теории. Вот здесь это Ленин написал. А до этого получилось так, что все-таки Маркс описал развитие капитализма такое, какое было в самой развитой капиталистической стране. Но не будем забывать, что эта самая развитая страна, она организовала рабовладение, и, так сказать, чтобы английские купцы накупили всяких безделушек, дали их вождям племен, которые им за это дадут людей, этих людей отправить на берег Африки, вот, на западный, и морем их переправить или на север, или на юг Америки. И там, как известно, демократическая партия, как партия рабовладельцев, вот их, так сказать, и привечала. А республиканцы, как мы знаем, выступали против. Поэтому это вот так и сохранилось сейчас. Вот.
Для меня они как... Это как...
факт, вот факт. А была война, север против юга. Как вот для вас? Это не для вас, а это история Америки. Республиканцы победили, рабовладельцев уничтожили. Поэтому уважать надо республиканцев за то, что они уничтожили рабовладение. Это же заслуга или нет?
Да, и потом...
А демократы, которые сейчас у власти, они это рабовладение все развели и воевали против республиканцев, чтобы сохранить рабовладение. Поэтому они всякую эксплуатацию в мире и сейчас сохраняют. Поэтому они самые последовательные. Республиканцы менее последовательные.
Конечно,
капиталисты.
да. Я соглашусь. Потому что Ленин тоже описал выбор на США. И когда я читаю, я смеюсь, потому что никто не изменится через 100 лет.
Да.
Потому что республиканские партии и демократические хочет эксплуатировать рабочий класс.
Это понятно. А все равно мы должны историческую роль, мы должны знать. Мы должны знать, какую историческую роль какая партия сыграла. Вот.
Да.
И в данном случае, сказать, республиканцы себя не запятнали, что они были партией рабовладельцев. А вот нынешняя партия демократическая – это была партия рабовладельцев Юга. И поэтому они самые гнусные, так сказать, враги трудящихся.
Да, республиканские партии были индустриальные партии, а владелец индустрия поддерживал республику.
Да, так что вот такая картина. Поэтому то, что вот писал Ленин, вот сейчас мы говорим, вот 100 лет, а есть еще люди, которые не прочитали произведения Ленина. Поэтому это повод не для радости, а для стыда. Тех, которые это не делают. А Ленин говорил, мы хотим, чтобы нас меньше почитали и побольше читали. Почитали, то есть уважали, да. Почтение оказывали. Нам это не нужно. Не нужно Ленину было почтение. А вот то, чтобы читали, это нужно. Потому что это нужно не лично Ленину, это нужно рабочему классу самому, и это нужно вообще человеческому прогрессу, общественному прогрессу. Поэтому человек, который не читает Ленина, не изучает, ну, это же не так долго прочитать, так сказать. Вот я, например, прочитал 55 томов Ленина и 18 томов Сталина, и видите, я не умер.
Да.
Ну и всякие глупости, которые читают люди, которых просто море глупостей печатается, и эти люди забивают себе голову всяких глупостью. И это продолжается. Но вот Маяковский же говорил, что Ленин не умер, что он вот в своих партийных книжках, вот он есть и живой.
Я была в похороне Ленина, в мавзолее Ленина 2 раза, и каждый раз я хочу, чтобы он проснулся. Но сейчас я знаю...
Он может проснуться только в вашем лице. Вот и просыпайтесь, пожалуйста, товарищ Ленин. Вот кто вам мешает? Вы можете делать то, что делали, но вам кто-нибудь мешает? Я не вижу, что вам... Хоть вы и приехали из такой вроде реакционной страны, но, во-первых, вы в другую реакционную приехали страну. И нам не мешает, и вам это не мешает. То есть, если мы будем плакающие большевики, никто, так сказать, за нами не пойдет. Мы говорим, вот, нам не дают, нам не делают. Кто вам не дает? Вы пришли и делаете то, что считаете нужным. Вот и делайте его. И это мы призываем к этому. Не я вас призываю, не вы меня призываете. Это мы вместе призываем всех товарищей. Самый лучший юбилей, способ отпраздновать юбилей Ленина какой? Сосредоточиться на нерешенных задачах и сделать то, что он советовал. А если вы не будете делать то, что он советовал, а будете сидеть и печалиться. Вот сейчас был бы Ленин, он бы вместо нас бы это все сделал, а мы бы ничего не делали. Сидели бы и ждали, когда у нас появится блюдечко с золотой каемочкой.
Сегодня я читала несколько. Советский Союз не был в это время не просто была один революция. Была революция в Германии, в Венгрии. Почему просто Советский Союз остался и...
Вот это и ответ, потому что у нас был Ленин, а там Ленина не было, а там были путаники, и люди не вполне великие или не вполне последовательные. Это один ответ. А другой ответ, что ведь революция происходит в той стране, где самые острые было противоречия. У нас были противоречия еще и буржуазные. У нас вот было здесь крестьянство, а в той же Германии крестьянство уже не могло пойти за рабочим классом. Оно уже получило в свое время там землю, стали мелкими буржуа и так далее. А у нас только свергли крепостничество, и люди остались без земли и без возможности себя прокормить. Поэтому крестьянство повернуло, когда большевики объявили, что вот крестьяне будут пользоваться землей, что мы национализируем и все это и для сельского хозяйства передадим землю в руки крестьян. Так и произошло. Поэтому вот такой возможности не было, потому что вот Россию, как говорится, задержали, вот она отставала в этом отношении, но из этой отсталости появился такой вот момент, как поддержка рабочего класса крестьянством. Уже в Европе западной этого не было.
Хорошо. И у меня еще один вопрос. И после времени Ленина все остальные революции были из-за марксизма-ленинизма. Почему?
Они не из-за марксизма-ленинизма были, они были из-за интересов рабочего класса. Вот. А поскольку интересы рабочего класса выясняет и излагает, и раскрывает все более и более именно марксизм-ленинизм, в том числе и те люди, которые делают конкретные такие вещи, как Сталин, Мао Цзэдун, тот же Ким Ир Сен. Поэтому там, где марксизм-ленинизм развивается, там идут революции. А там, где он не развивается, там, в общем-то, и нет оснований. То есть не хватает для революции того, что является таким моментом. То есть не хватает или остроты противоречий, которые есть, или не хватает численности рабочего класса, его роль в обществе недостаточная. То чего-то не хватает. Потому что это редкость. Всего вот Ленин, когда писал о том, что революция возможна в одной стране, а вот Маркс и Энгельс ведь представляли дело так, что революция возникнет сразу в нескольких в развитых капиталистических странах. И Ленин в 2 работах.
Да, это было где капитализм не тягивает.
Ну вот это было верно тогда, когда еще не было империализма. Когда можно примерно в одно и то же время могут созреть условия для революции. А когда начался империализм, и вот Ленин как только написал,
я люблю
империализм как высшая стадия капитализма, он показал, что мир развивается неравномерно. И вот есть 2 работы, ровно 2. Одна называется «Военная программа пролетарской революции», а другая называется «О лозунге Соединенных Штатов Европы». И в этих 2 работах Лениным написано однозначно, что невозможно при империализме, чтобы революция могла пройти сразу в нескольких странах. Она сначала будет в одной отдельно взятой стране, и которой придется встать, особенно в военной программе пролетарской, перед всем миром вооруженным. Она должна встать и защищать эту свою революцию. Вот так и было. Хотя люди, которые мало читали и не очень разбирались, в том числе и большевики, вот скажем, на 7-м съезде требовали: давайте пойдем, в атаку и бить будем немцев. А Ленин говорил, что давайте с мексами замиримся, а у нас есть уже готовый ребенок. Он родился, и мы вместо того, чтобы его воспитать из него, так сказать, могучего богатыря, нам предлагают вот эти вот так называемые революционеры бросить его в топку мировой революции. И вот Троцкий и вся эта компания...
Да, Троцкий не хочет бросить это, и это были его богатые фантазии.
Не только его, потому что троцкистов у нас полно, сейчас в России полно. Вот Семин, например, и другие люди, которые говорят, что вот Семин говорит, я с ним, так сказать, дискутировал публично, и публично, так сказать, это зафиксировал и заклеймил его, что он на самом деле, ну, можно сказать, худший представитель тех, кто называет себя революционерами. Он говорит, что сначала будет революция в Соединенных Штатах Америки, а потом уже в других странах.
Нет, я думаю, это будет как гитлеровские Германии, Соединенные Штаты Америки.
Это не будет, это уже есть. У нас социализм никуда не делся. У нас революция произошла в Советском Союзе, и не было после этого ни одного месяца или года, когда бы не было социалистических стран. У нас был социалистический лагерь один, сейчас он другой, но у нас есть на сегодняшний день коммунистический Китай, у нас есть построивший социализм Корея, КНДР. Венесуэла еще ничего не построила.
Да?
Да, пока нет. Пока там еще идет борьба.
Потому что в Боливии тоже идет борьба?
Борьба идет, да. А вот мы можем считать социалистическими те страны, где установлена диктатура пролетариата.
Вьетнам?
Вьетнам уже построил. Вьетнам, там дело долгое, потому что если раньше вьетнамцев уничтожали, уродовали их, вели войну американцы, они сейчас стали лучшими друзьями во Вьетнаме. Поэтому там вот какие-то... Вьетнам, мне кажется, переживает очень грустные времена, когда он якшается не с теми, кто им помогал, там, не с Китаем и не с Советским Союзом, а якшается с американцами. Поэтому, так сказать, вот Вьетнам тут не на первом месте далеко. Но он, тем не менее, социалистическая страна. Вот. Но социалистическая страна, как показывает опыт и Советского Союза, и Вьетнама в мире, еще ничего не значит. Насчет Лаоса, в котором тоже была социалистическая, просто ничего не известно. То ли потому, что никто не хочет, так сказать, этим заниматься, кому положено, вот, не разбираться. Но вот мы картину просто не знаем. Вот. А что касается вот этих стран, где такие революционные элементы победили, ну, вот тут можно будет сказать, что там социалистическая революция, когда мы будем констатировать наличие диктатуры пролетариата. Но мы знаем, что на Кубе долгое время они тоже не говорили. И Кастро сначала в коммунистическую партию не входил. Но после известного периода там было все налажено. И партия рабочего класса, и Фидель Кастро туда вошел, и диктатура пролетариата. Поэтому, ну, с момента вот создания, проведения социалистической революции в мире уже не было такого времени нисколько, чтобы не было социалистических стран. Социалистические страны у нас все время есть.
Это, для меня это хорошо.
И не только для вас, и для трудящихся хорошо.
Да, для трудящих. Сейчас я вижу борьба в африканских странах, это борьба против империализма.
Борьба против империализма, которая расшатывает этот империализм, ослабляет его. А империализм должен быть душить социалистические страны, а его сзади там толкают и портят ему все. Поэтому вот вы видели, что уже и Соединенные Штаты забегались. Им надо, значит, Израиль надо защищать вот, против Хамаса. Теперь нужно, значит, защищать Украину, куда они, собственно, и вторглись, потому что Украина под пятой американцев сейчас. Там она не самостоятельная. Это и есть, так сказать, она под управлением американцев. И, так сказать, в то же время они хотели держать в таком узде Северную Корею. А Северная Корея создала современное оружие, и ракеты, и средства доставки, и так сказать, современные средства поражения. Поэтому, так сказать, тут мы констатируем, что прорвав вот цепь империализма в одном звене в России, рабочий класс после этого, так сказать, только увеличил. Она только сокращается или увеличивается, но не пропадает.
Я посмотрю, это увеличило, потому что я приехала сюда в 2019 в Донбассе это строго, чем здесь.
Да. Да, поэтому сейчас нет такой ситуации, что вот пропал социализм. Социализм не пропал. В Корее он, наоборот, есть. Я там был 2 недели, и у меня прекрасные впечатления от этой поездки. И это, так сказать, такие впечатления, как от нашей страны, когда она была молодой.
Хорошо. И сколько времени у вас есть?
Сколько надо.
Просто последний вопрос. И если люди не знают много о ленинизме, Как они начинают? Я думаю, что они начинают с ленинской статью «Чем начинаться?».
Если люди не знают Ленина, то они, так сказать, находятся в состоянии людей, которые плывут по течению. Вот про таких людей Сталин говорил, что вот я, говорит, видел на Енисее, когда бурные потоки идут, буря, и вот лодочники они соответственно, своими палками они пытаются направить свои лодки туда, куда надо. И вот те, кто начинают грести и направлять, те выживают. А люди другие, они прячут свои глаза, ложатся на дно лодки, и эти лодки бьют об камни, и эти люди пропадают. Так и здесь. Те люди, которые хотят в наше время жить без Ленина, без Сталина, без Гегеля, без Маркса, вот, без великих людей, которые продвинули человечество вперед, они все, с одной стороны, они еще живые, но в них ничего, так сказать, перспективного, ничего прогрессивного нет. Это люди, которые, ну, как у всякое живое, живут как червяки, как, так сказать, ползающие какие-то гады и так далее, хотя они могут иметь и большие доходы, вот. Но и как они распоряжаются своими большими доходами? Вот уже некоторые, так сказать, богатые люди в той же России показывают, что они уже не знают, куда деньги девать, а, так сказать, их нравственность и мораль, они глубоко упали.
Спасибо большое для интервью. Hey. Hey. Okay, hold on. Let me make the sound. You cannot see me? I can't hear you.
You're like a blank box.
Okay, I don't know what to do. Okay, well, yeah, I could have made it smoother, but then, like, right after the interview, he started quizzing me about the status of my book and how I shouldn't use capitalist technology to write the outline of my book and so on. So I didn't want to show that one.
Yeah. No, it was good. It was good, actually. Like, I wasn't following along. But normally when I do the edits of the video, I'm doing the edits of the video, so I see a lot of the video before we play it. But I wasn't, this time you had done all the edits, so I was just taking the end off. So I was trying to follow along a lot. So I want to rewatch it because it seems like he was going through a lot of like basic Marxist Leninist stuff too. Like it seems like a important for newer communists to see that too.
Yeah, hold on. Let me come back.
Okay. Yes. So. Yes, Nomo Popo. We'll see. She'll listen to him. Hopefully. Yeah, no, but I was saying like it. So I wasn't really paying attention to it in the first couple of minutes, and then I started watching it, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is like this is actually a good a good class study." Like,
oh yeah, he has a lot of things I need to I should translate. Yeah, like he has Lenin's collected works, all of them read and interpreted and so on. Yeah, my camera just doesn't want to work today, so I have to deal with my webcam, which is inferior and makes me look less pretty. And it's not at the right eye level either. So I look.
You're
like
never at the right eye level. You're like. You need someone to come over and just like set you up, like have you sit down in a seat and just totally set you up, and then you can never move out of that position.
Yeah, no. This time, no. The webcam makes sure I'm not on the right eye level because this is the right eye level, and now it looks like I'm steering up.
Yeah, you know what I do? I have my computers up, like it's about a foot off the table. It's up,
Okay.
so then the camera's looking at me
Okay, now something like this is what I need to do.
Yeah, if you put it on books or something, sometimes.
Okay, I will do. Well, this I don't need to use this camera because I have a real camera right there, but that doesn't want to work today.
Oh, Normo Popo said, "You're not less pretty. You're just more pasty."
Okay, yeah, the color here is off because the light's off. Whatever. Okay. So I finally learned how to use an oven because, as you know, Indians don't use ovens. My parents think it's for storage or something. Like they put pots and pans in it. But life is so much more convenient when I use an oven.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you can just like stick vegetables in it, and that's it.
All right. So when that interview was going on, there's a point where he says to you, I was just coming back up and I just caught it, and so I don't know. Did he ask you who would win in an election, Stalin or Lenin? Like that's
Well,
what I into it. So then I was like,
yeah, and I said Stalin.
was that hard for you to say Stalin? That's what I caught. I was like, she said Stalin.
Yeah, because I've been around here in Russia, and
You know that's Stalin. Okay, all right.
and people definitely have have more fond feelings towards Stalin. Like with Lenin, he's too distant. They don't remember. Like there isn't a memory of
Yeah,
Lenin. He died way. People have fond memories of Stalin, and they've had their parents say how Khrushchev ruined everything and how Stalin was great. And so people here like Stalin way more. So in Russia, if they were going to have an election today, Stalin would, and like if you were to resurrect Lenin, Stalin, and have Putin, Stalin would win in a landslide.
I did like that you brought up that you want Stalin to just get up and like you and your whole Stalin just awakening.
Yeah. And that's what I meant. Like, it's not that I would prefer Stalin. It's just that I know I've traveled around enough in Russia to know who the people will vote for.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. But what else is
somebody said I like convection oven. Like the cooking time is between oven and microwave, but would still taste from oven. Okay, I have a gas oven here that I need to use like those old lighter thingies. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, I have all his books with me.
All his books.
Yeah, see?
So
yeah, pilot is that's the thing. Pilot. Yep, that's the thing. Yes, exactly that.
So he's ahead of which communist party there?
Рабочий Party России, the Workers' Party of Russia.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. So actually, I should read. Maybe I should read some. The problem is, I'm not like Lenin. Apparently, once had this book in German, and people were like, "I don't speak German," so he then said, "Let's read it in Russian." So while he was like live translating, I can't do that just yet.
Yeah, that's gonna be
Dокладия for the political it's in conferences. Schedule CKKP and I can't do Roman numerals. XXVII.
XX is 20, II is 2, so 22.
Of the conference of the party, подчеркивается глубокое проникновение в диалектик. So yeah, in the 25th party conference, they did a deep inquiry into the 27 actually. Inquiry into the dialectic method and what happened during the last years of the dictatorship of the proletariat. And so this is what this book is. Here is well, they are okay. What he means by persecuting communists is like what Pinochet did. Or what Jakarta method. So yeah, nobody is throwing communists like the rivers are not like the rivers have not turned red from the blood from killing like it was in.
I feel like basically they did so much work with their anti-communism for boomers and Gen X and made us Red Scare and all that the only like persecution we would get in the United States is basically we are ignored and made to feel like, you know what I mean? Like they're just like, oh, communist, because there's enough people that that are anti-communist because of what they did. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, they did persecute communists up until like
The 60s, 70s, like the early 70s.
up until the fall of the Soviet Union, and then they kind of got over cocky.
Yeah. So
no, there was never communism, but they killed 3 million communists in Indonesia right when Suharto took to power.
Mm-hmm.
So what I meant is, there were reports where in the Malagasy Strait, like the bodies were floating right up in the Malagasy Straits, and the rivers had turned red with blood because they killed so many people. Okay, somebody from Twitch says Mansur Blitz. In America, it seems that people tend to err towards anarchism. And unfortunately, yes, because there was an FBI memo about the compatible left, and many Western anarchist groups, kind of are not useful, but they are good for undermining already existing socialist systems. And so that's kind of why a lot of these anarchist groups were allowed to fester for a while.
But also, like in prisons in the 70s, they like after like the Black Panther Party and stuff, they started removing. You couldn't have Marxist-Leninist literature, but you could have anarchist literature.
Yeah.
So prisoners were able to read anarchist literature. So a lot of them came out of there. They might have gone in there as Marxist-Leninists from the Black Panther Party, but some of them came out as anarchists too because of that.
Exactly. And so that's why. And yes, it takes a lot of work to become a communist in America, to understand the world as it is and understand the trickle down, like how imperialism works and why the third world is like the third world and why America is like America and all that. And a lot of people are just not up to that level of work needed to kind of get that whole picture.
And I feel like there's a lot more like there's some Trotsky stuff like in a lot of the parties too.
A lot, yeah. I mean, yeah. The old joke goes that if you have one Trotskyist party with 50 members this year, next year you'll have 50 parties with 1 member each, and so Trotsky parties tend to divide and multiply.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not, and like there shouldn't be the fight for the perfect, but you know, like we all have to have like the same sense of like, okay, we're doing Marxist-Leninism, you know what I mean, like that, you know, and like have like one line that's being followed, you know, but that's not, you know, there's a lot of individualism in United States too, so.
But it's also really hard for people to organize themselves in a party. Like we did an episode on historically about this. The suburbs were created to prevent something like the Russian Revolution from happening in the US. And so people are not able to physically get to each other. And then they also created like a new reality in the 50s and up to the fall of the Soviet Union, where middle class, where like the working class had a middle class lifestyle for a little while, but most of them didn't realize it's only because of the Soviet Union and nothing else. And so they kind of didn't understand why they had that quality of life. And then when you see it, like you see, they got rid of they right after the fall of the Soviet Union, NAFTA came in. They got unemployment rose. The minimum wage hasn't risen. They deindustrialized a lot of the U.S. and so forth. And so that is why there isn't yes, no more Popo. The threat of a good that's Cuba. In a 1961 State Department memo, they explained the Cuban threat, and they were like, when people look at Cuba, they'll expect things like food and water. When South Americans, they'll expect food and water and living wage. And Cuba is a threat of a good example, is basically what the memo said, word for word.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so so it's hard because there are enough people with just about as who are making it, hanging on, who have that quality of life. That doesn't means that they don't really have to question their hegemony.
Yeah. You don't have to worry because you're, I mean, I grew up in a middle class suburb, and I mean, I always kind of had a sense of things, you know what I mean? Like I just have like empathy, so I like always had a sense of things, but it took a long time. Like it took me a long time, and even with me, in the 80s, saying, I'm an anarchist, blah, 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 and then like trying to get into Marxist Leninist, all that time. It takes a long time to get rid of the liberal bullshit of all that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it really does. So
liberal idealism, yeah. Like, hey, if you vote and elect the right 52, if you elect the right number of AOCs into Congress, you're gonna get a new government. And no, that's not. No matter how many AOCs, it doesn't even matter how many AOCs. Let's see how many Che Guevaras you elected to Congress. It doesn't matter because the way our Congress is structured is that you don't get a new government.
Yeah, and I don't think I think even still in 2016 to 2018, I was still kind of in that mindset that I almost thought like, oh, we could do it, or at least I was saying like we wouldn't necessarily do it from the inside, but it'd be good to have like progressives on the inside as we're doing it on the outside. But then like soon after 2018, I'm like, that's not happening at all. Like none of that is happening whatsoever. And like, so in my mindset, it really doesn't matter too much because it's under the system. Like we have to clean up the system.
Exactly. And yeah, so like, but a lot of liberals think you have 434 AOCs in Congress, you'll get a new system and healthcare, but no, that's not what happens, regardless of how many. And that's the thing, like, and it's also designed to make sure people who raise, I haven't actually read this book. Now I'm curious. I want to read it, but I'll read it later. I definitely read it.
The person on Twitch, is this the one that you knew of? He talking about the brave Texan I met.
We spoke about that last week. He died. Yeah. We don't know how he died yet. I met him when I was in Donetsk. Yeah. So I really don't have anything to say, but I don't. We're still waiting.
Yeah. So this was someone on Twitch was mentioning Russell Bentley. So
yeah, we spoke about him last week. And yeah, he came over to give humanitarian aid during the Ukraine bombing campaign, where they were just like, where they were doing the indiscriminate bombing, like they were just like killing everyone left and right. And then he stayed and started to fight on the DNR militia, Donetsk Narodnaya Republic militia. And he looks like he died around April 8th. I don't know how, why. The autopsy is still going on. We don't know who killed him, so we're just gonna have to wait on that.
Daryl, I get, like he's saying, I hear that at international events, leftists from around the world act like leftists in the United States could just push Congress into the side, like leftists in the United States aren't trying. And I understand that frustration because it is like,
yeah,
I don't know if they understand how much our hands got tied because of how much the anti-communism was. Like I think that, like me being 53 and being born in 1970, the more I think about it, the more I go back to that, and I'm like, it was bad. Like we were scared as kids. Like we were made to be scared of Russians.
That's
Like
all
the
right.
Russians were coming. The Russians were coming. Like we were made to be scared of them. But I knew a Russian, and I was like, but they're okay person. Like I don't have a problem with this person.
Yeah, that sounds like wait. That sounds like they were just like more than anti-communist. They were just building pure racism.
It was like they did it. It was never, they wouldn't like mention the word communism. It was always like we had the things from like the 50s and 60s. It was always the isms, and they were like so like hitting on socialism, fascism, but like the isms they were hitting, but they would never really say the word communism. They would always put it on the Russians. Like that's what I grew up with. The more I think about it, like it was more like
Racism.
Hate the Russians. Like that's what they were giving us, like all together. And the more I think about it, I'm just, how
Yeah.
What just happened?
What happened? Where did you go?
I don't know. The computer the program just did something weird and knocked us off.
Oh wow!
I didn't touch anything, and it just all of a sudden it just knocked us both out of the room.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Once it did this, I mean, I was leading the stream and I was so panicked, and thankfully nothing happened. But since then, like Janet's been organizing the stream because I don't know about the sanctions and my IP, whether to do it with VPN without.
Yeah, that was definitely something on my computer end, like in the studio itself.
Yeah. So yeah. I forgot what. Yeah, that was and that's what Daryl's point. Basically, no, they don't understand because they don't actually understand all the, like, they haven't peeled the onion of America. They think, okay, people can protest. Okay, well, kind of protest as long as it's not too protesty. Yeah. But they see America's imperialism, and it's hard for them to get past that. And so they see like when you're the brunt of America's imperialism, it's kind of hard for you to get past that and see, oh, so this is what America is doing to the people there. Like it's easy to get mad at the people for not doing enough, because you're the brunt of, like last week, your child didn't have to be a prostitute, and this week it did. So they did. And so it's kind of
plus the protests that are pushed out here, like the ones that really get anything on them are more liberal. They're not coming from, like the big marches and stuff like that. Always, like they kind of go into the liberal sense, even if they're not, like, not all of them are liberal, but it's like they highlight that part of it. So I don't feel like I think that you can say, oh, student protesting, this is bad, but like even in talking with Gabriella, you can see that they're coming at it from the right sense. Like they're not, it's not like a liberal sense that they're going at it.
They're coming from an anti-imperialist sense. But yeah, I mean, for me, the I wouldn't even call Occupy Wall Street a real protest, because it was like a color revolution in practice. I mean, right after Occupy Wall Street, they did the whole Arab Spring, and it seems like they were data collecting to see what would work in order to do the mass regime change.
Yeah.
But to me, that was so co-opted. What was I saying? What did I was co-opted into liberalism? I don't know if it's co-opted or if it was always liberal. What was Occupy?
I think it was just, you know, it was on the spontaneous compared to the conscious, you know what I mean? Like maybe it had something to do with that. Like it was more spontaneous. It wasn't fully thought out. And so then it came out more liberal or something like that.
And then later it's like color revolution.
Yeah.
Okay, so Daryl says, speaking out as somebody Black, I individually can get over my will to live for the benefit of the people of the world. However, most Black people are trying to go along and get along. Well, what I've noticed with most Black Americans that I've spoken to is that they are very aware of what the U.S. does abroad and of imperialism and things like that. It seems like many are unable to, like, the organization is either impossible because of constant persecution, or it's just not enough in their area. That's the impression I get.
But it's also like go along to get along. Like, I mean, that's pretty, I think that you could do that in any section of people because, you know, enough of them, like I talked to an indigenous person and he made money off of a business and he just thinks like capitalism is wonderful. And I'm like, but what about like your people? Like, I'm like, well, I go and talk to them and bring them stuff. And I'm like, but like, I don't know. Like, I think that people, it's an individualism is what it is that people have to understand community better in the United States. And I think that's what's lacking.
I agree. A protest against the 2000. Okay, I really saw it as an attack by dollar free against the Eurozone, the 2000 crash, or Occupy Wall Street.
Probably the Occupy. So it was the reason why they did it was because of the crash, and then. I mean, I'll say like like they were hitting the neoliberalism stuff, and you know.
No. They said 2008 crash. Yes, there's good evidence about the 2008 crash being an attempt to break the euro. It was not a financial attack against the euro per se, but I mean, in the eurozone, it was basically France and Germany leveraging themselves up to the max while screwing over the pigs country, Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain.
Yeah.
So within the euro bubble, yes, that definitely happened. I would like to learn. I would say that your theory may be plausible, maybe not plausible. I just don't want to comment without doing more research on it. It's a very interesting theory, though. I will pay attention and then check it out.
Yes.
So it may be. I wouldn't. Yeah, Germany propped up the euro. You're absolutely right about that. So, like I said, it's a very good theory, and I wouldn't dismiss it. But I cannot. I don't know enough to comment right now.
She'll look at it. She always does.
Yeah. It might take a few months, but I will always look and follow through. So for me, the thing about Occupy Wall Street was that they didn't have any goals or demands per se.
That's why I'm saying, like, you know, because I was just reading What Is to Be Done. So, you know, how he talks about, instead of like saying reactionary and theory, he goes with spontaneous and conscious. So like that's what I'm saying, like there was no consciousness to the movement because they just did it, like they just went and did it, so they didn't have everything. Whereas when we talked to Gabriella and they're like, well, we've been doing this for a while, and then like we started doing this, and then we planned this, and then you know what I mean, like there was planning into what they're doing. Like that's the difference between the two.
Yeah, exactly. That's the great way to say it. And then later, you know, that the feds infiltrated it and used it basically for color revolution practice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard in the U.S. for like anytime, like it's like Tsar's Russia, as Lenin said in What Is to Be Done. Like anytime any organization got through, the Tsar cracked down upon the older people and then let the younger people take over and didn't know what they were doing. And that's kind of the thing, is that there needs to be a way for an organization to be able to handle the U.S. persecution, which follows the same path over and over. Discredit media, use the media to discredit, target the leaders, assassinate them. What else?
And well, put in their own guy.
Put in their own infiltrators and make it into a compatible left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know how to build an organization that can fight against it or what is to be done there, but maybe I will one day in the future.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We got to figure it out at some point.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, New York Post. Oh my God! Now that Monsieur Balls mentioned Soros, the New York Post said that Soros was behind the pro-Palestinian protest.
I know they're all
Yeah,
doesn't even freaking make sense at all.
yeah.
I mean,
Soros is behind protests in foreign countries that they want to do color revolutions in.
Yeah.
So Open Democracy is the organization, and if you search many of these like dissidents in all the enemy countries are supported by them. So yeah, he does support color revolutions in foreign countries, but he doesn't support Palestinian any actual justice, anything related to actual justice.
He wouldn't want the colleges to divest. Like he wouldn't.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense because there's an end goal of divestment here, and that's why it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Okay, so in enemy countries like in Bolivia or Belarus, there makes sense. There's lithium and whatever else they want to. Yeah.
Yep.
So he's funding many of the color revolters there. I don't know if you can call them protesters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I hear Janine Áñez is learning how to sew in prison.
Learning how to sew in prison?
Yeah, Janine Áñez, the coup president of Bolivia.
Oh, yeah.
She's serving a long prison sentence for treason and organizing like lots of things. So she's in prison in a long sentence, and apparently she's finally doing something productive.
Well, that's nice. That's good.
Yeah. So Monsieur Balls says, so will the dollar be weaponized to sanction China's banks? No, because China, that's a self-sanction. Yeah, the dollar being able to be weaponized, it's coming to a close. There's already India, Russia, China, Iran, all of them together have already started like doing trades with de-dollarized a lot. And so even Saudi Arabia has de-dollarized, and actually like when they're trading with China, they use a mix of reals or dinars. Saudi Arabia, I forgot. What's their currency? Reals or dinars?
I'm not sure.
Okay, whatever the Saudi currency is, usually it's the Middle Eastern, half of them are reals and half of them are dinars. Iran's a tuman.
Real?
Okay, I was right. Okay, Saudi reals. So they did it in a mix. So even Saudi Arabia, their best ally, is de-dollarizing. So the U.S. overplayed their hand when they stole basically billions of dollars of Russia's reserves. Yeah, the dollar fiat is now dominant, but the de-dollarization process has begun. So anytime in the future, if they can't weaponize the dollar as much as they did in the past, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And thank you, Techloid Tech, for the donation.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to highlight that when we
Yeah,
came back, and I did not. Thank you, Techloid.
that's very sweet of you. Happy birthday, Vladimir Ilyich.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, is there anything else, or do we see each other next week?
I think we see each other next week because I got to get my father dinner.
Okay. Bon appetit, Janet's dad.
All right. All right, everybody. Thank you for
Bye-bye.
joining.
Be sure to like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments what you think of de-dollarization.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.